I need to be on your, you pause.
Apologies, we're having a couple technical difficulties.
Touch screen.
That's muted.
Your speakers are on. I need your screen. Your speaker. No, it's off. Your speaker's on. It's your speaker on.
And just shut it. To access the meeting agenda, please visit our website at www.cccco.edu and go to the About Us tab drop-down menu. Select Board of Governors, then Meeting Schedule, Minutes, and Agenda, and click on the blue Agenda hyperlink. Members of the public wishing to comment on a specific agenda item or during the public forum may do so one of two ways. In-person attendees must submit a comment card request, which is available at the board liaison desk. Virtual attendees shall use the raise hand feature. If you're calling into the meeting, press *9. Following each agenda item, individuals will have the opportunity to address the board in order which they were received. We'll begin with in-person public comments, followed by virtual public comments. As a reminder, closed captioning is available. Click the CCC icon at the bottom of the screen labeled closed caption to read live captioning. This concludes my announcements. President Costa, would you like me to call the roll?
Yes, please.
Hildegard B. Aguinaldo.
Present.
Darius W. Anderson.
Present.
Adrian C. Brown.
Present.
Amy M. Costa.
Present.
Tom Epstein.
Here.
Felicia Escobar Carrillo.
Present.
Jolina M. Grande.
Here.
Pamela Haynes.
Here.
Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis. Harry LeGrand.
Here.
Paul Medina.
Here.
Jennifer L. Perry.
Present.
Bill Rawlings.
Present.
Mary H. Salas. Blas Villalobos.
Present.
Joseph R. Williams. President Costa, quorum is established.
Thank you so much. With that, I'd like to call on Board Member Brown to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. With that, next, the board is going to go into closed session. We're anticipating that'll be about 30 minutes, give or take. Thank you so much. We will be back momentarily. Thank you. The board is back. We do not have any reportable items coming out of closed session. With that, our next order is actually for my president's report. And I actually am going to say a little bit more than I typically do. I just wanted to start by saying late last week, I really had the immense honor of speaking with both the trustees and the CEOs of the Community College League. And both conversations were really wonderful and enlightening for me. And I appreciate the ideas that both of the groups brought forward to me. It was really heartening and invigorating to really look out across the system at every level and see the shared commitment to our students front and center. I shared with the trustees how even though I've been involved in higher education policy for a couple decades now, it was my recent experience with my own children that's really enriched my total understanding and belief in what I think is ahead. Higher education is in the midst of a tremendous transformation. Some of this is driven by demographics. Some of it is expedited by COVID, but mostly it's a reflection of the world in which we live in, which has rapid change afoot every single day. My parents worked for the same companies for their entire careers. My husband and I have worked in the same industry for most of our careers. But I came to the realization that our children will have many careers in many different industries as our economy and the world change right before our eyes. I'm really excited that later today we're going to hear more about Vision 2030 because I think it recognizes this new reality. It may seem like a wonky theoretical issue, but credit for prior learning is the future. Credit for prior learning helps our students today by accelerating their time with us. But I believe it will also be the cornerstone of workforce in our economy. It is one of the many components that leverages our strength as a system. Local districts able to reflect their communities and our system as a whole by being nimble and able to best support our students. Thank you. With that, I will turn it over to our fearless leader.
Well, good afternoon. My report is rather long, so be patient. It's probably going to clock about 15 to 20 minutes potentially. Well, I thought I would start my report by recognizing that today marks the 50th anniversary of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, a groundbreaking civil rights law that requires equal opportunity for people with disabilities. We are in day 2 of the Anna P.C. Week that commemorates the significance and achievement of Asian American and Native American Pacific Islander serving institutions. And we're in day 11 of the National Hispanic Heritage Month, September 15th through October 15th. This is my second meeting of the Board of Governors. It has been an active 3 months traveling the state to discuss Vision 2030 as we shape the document to come before you today. We have had trustees, presidents, chancellors, administrators, faculty, staff, and students, Paul making sure always we have students involved, all presenting on panels, participating in discussions, events in person, events online. And thank you to members of the Board of Governors who have been trekking all over California for an event, whether it's on dual enrollment, student housing, workforce development, or even federal advocacy work all the way to Washington, D.C. Yesterday, I participated in a wonderful webinar on generative AI hosted by ASCCC, FAC, and the Chancellor's Office. Well, actually, I was supposed to give the opening remarks, but spaced out the time due to a previous meeting that ran over. I tuned in about 10 minutes late and was so impressed with the presentation and discussions led by Cheryl Oschenbach, President of the Academic Senate, Wendy Brill Weinkoop, the President of the Faculty Association, and Craig Hayward, Visiting Executive here at the Chancellor's Office. I learned about the functionality of ChatGPT, about Perplexity and Claude. I learned that the word hallucination in the AI world is where OpenAIs make up false information on facts that aren't based on real data or events. I learned how to use Bing Chat to develop a draft flipped classroom lesson plan. The webinar was well attended, 450 participants. A live poll conducted during the webinar found that 21% of participants were regularly using generative AI in their work in the classroom, another 47% using it occasionally or having experimented with it. Among those who participated, 26% felt pessimistic about generative AI in higher education, while 52% felt optimistic. The remainder were neutral or undecided. The next webinar in the series is scheduled for November 7th at noon. I will not be late this time. So I invite all members of the Board of Governors who make sure we include it in our weekly update to tune in, and invite colleagues across California to tune in as well. Have good news for you on enrollments. So fall 2022 saw a 2% increase, and then the data rolled in, and John had sent an email to all of us that when you look at the annual data for 2022-23, we see a 4% increase from the previous year. 1.9 million students, with 94 colleges showing increases. The growth also shows that we have a 7% growth in African American students, 7% in our Latino students, and 9% in our Native American students. Enrollments increased for all age groups, mostly notable for 19 years old or younger, reflecting increases in our dual enrollment program. The data also shows an increase in students older than 45 years, which we had some of the most significant declines early in the pandemic. And in conversations with CEOs for fall 2023, we don't have the data yet at the Chancellor's office. I'm hearing good news, positive trend, and in fact, many of the districts are telling me that they're seeing double-digit enrollment growth. So I wanted to move to another very positive topic, and that's student housing. Grab two pictures for you, the groundbreaking at Tahoe, and you can see Board Member Haynes there, and then the opening, the grand opening at Santa Rosa. And in fact, we had a big delegation from the Board of Governors, but I have a picture. You can see Lizette in the pink jacket. I think Paul Medina was there, Jennifer Perry was there, Harry LeGrand was there. Who else was there? Bill Rawlings was there. So it was a huge, huge group. Pam was there as well. All right. So, but the point I wanted to also share in terms of excitement is with the leadership of our Executive Vice Chancellor, Navarrete, and the support of the League, our college districts and students in advocacy, we were able to resolve a tricky budget wrinkle that would have affected the state's support of over $1 billion for initial construction of affordable housing, which was generously included in the January budget proposal. Later in the year, the budget position shifted to one in which nearly 20 colleges approved for funding would need to borrow that money through 30-year bonds. Our advocacy team helped secure a legislative solution that the state intends to provide those funds so colleges don't have to go into debt, and the housing projects to support student success can continue as planned. So I really want to recognize Dr. Navarrete and team, David, the League, everyone who made this happen. Pretty remarkable. So shifting to Vision 2030, we have what we call demonstration projects, and we're utilizing demonstration projects to advance key pieces of work where we are able to test run proof of concept before moving into large-scale implementation. The plan is to identify resources for these projects through philanthropic dollars, and thank you to the foundation. I see Sandy Freed here, who's been helping us with a lot of the writing and the thinking, Keitha Mills, the whole team, Melissa, In partnering and helping us secure philanthropic dollars, we've also been identifying dollars from our own funds here in the Chancellor's office, working with districts to see if they're willing to subsidize some of the costs of personnel associated with the demonstration projects. And we're also looking for resources, state resources and federal resources. Another key element of the demonstration projects is that we are working closely with districts and relying on them to take the lead with support from the Chancellor's office. At this time, we have 6 demonstration projects that are taking shape. So I want to quickly introduce you to the 6. We have the systems development for supporting working adults. This is a project being led by Dr. Navarrete and in partnership with President Michael Gutierrez from Hartnell. This project is multi-phased. Phase 1 focuses on removing barriers associated with awarding credit for prior learning that President Costa mentioned, and offering flexible scheduling. This project will identify policies and the operational infrastructure necessary to support the success of over 1.2 million students enrolled as working learners. Identify proven district practices and take it to scale. Enable flexible course scheduling and short-term length classes. Identify funding incentives for curricular mapping for credit for prior learning. That's a project that's already off and running. Project number 2 is our Apprenticeship Pathways Demonstration Project. And the picture you see was actually taken on August 29th when we had 25 districts here in the Chancellor's office as we launched the project. Vice Chancellor Sandra Sanchez is leading the project for the Chancellor's office. Rancho Santiago is the lead district and fiscal agent under the leadership of Chancellor Marvin Martinez and his team at Rancho. 25 districts are participating in this project, and you'll hear more about this tomorrow. It's a scheduled agenda item. Number 3, Pathways for Low-Income Workers. This is an awesome picture. I love it. And it was taken also on August 29th when we had the leadership team from UDW here at the Chancellor's office working through some of the details on the agreement with UDW. So Deputy Chancellor Daisy Gonzalez is leading this project for the Chancellor's office. There is a large team working on different components of this very complex, innovative project. Vice Chancellor Sanchez is leading the Pathways component of the project and is working with Chaffey College as the lead fiscal agent. This demonstration project also requires the building of data analytics infrastructure and capabilities within our office. Craig Hayward is working closely with Eric Cooper and Wested in building out this infrastructure. The partnership aspect of the work will be presented tomorrow. In fact, we will start our day with UDW leadership here, and we will bring back the other 2 components in our November meeting. Project number 4 is the Common Cloud Data Demonstration Project. The point of contact from our office is Dr. Craig Hayward. The project will touch every division in our office, including the academic side, that needs the capabilities, needs to access data for the tremendous work that we are doing, for example, with AB 928. Student Affairs needs access to run predictive analytics to provide insights on how we can support students better. And our Research and Technology Division would have access to real-time data. Coast Community College District will be the lead and will act as the fiscal agent for this project, working with approximately 10 districts. So you're getting the theme here, right? Vision 2030 is being deployed with connections with the field, building up systems, test piloting it, test driving it, testing the proof of concept, and then we are working at scale. Number 5 is our Student Veterans Demonstration Project. There are 2 parts to this project. The Military Articulation Project is being led by Riverside Community College District under the leadership of Chancellor Waldia Isaak. And what we're looking at is utilizing the credit for prior learning for our veterans as the foundational piece to scale up the catalog for adult learners. The second part of this demonstration project is focused on mental health for our student veterans. The Chancellor's Office point of contact is Assistant Vice Chancellor Gina Brown, working with a large team. We have 2 more projects, which is a larger mental health demonstration project that is just being developed under the leadership of Vice Chancellor Rebecca Ron O'Shaughnessy, and a microgrid demonstration project being run through Dr. Navarrette's shop with Rena Finch and Jeff Clary from the foundation. That was a lot, but I thought it was really important for you, members of the Board of Governors, and for the field at large to really understand our strategy in moving the work, not waiting for the perfect plan, but starting through iteration to move out implementation of large-scale projects. Let me now move to our DC advocacy trip. And again, capture 2 pictures, one at the Department of Education and one with Senator Padilla. So David O'Brien built a very busy schedule for us and had the 6-member team splitting up to cover as many meetings as we could possibly take. I clocked close to 30,000 steps each day in the 2-day sprint. I learned the hard way, however, on the first day when I was rushing around with my high heels. And then the second day brought my sneakers so that I could switch out my shoes between my meetings. From our office, we had our Deputy Chancellor, Daisy Gonzalez, who worked with David in leading this work. And from our board, we had our very own president, Amy Costa, and our past president, Pam Haynes. And both of them were incredibly wonderful at all of our meetings. And from the foundation, you're getting the trend. We work very closely with the foundation. Tim Aldinger, who leads the workforce division of the foundation, joined us. We visited federal agencies like energy, labor, education, commerce, and a dozen key congressional offices, including meetings with Senator Padilla, a few think tank partners, including the Lumina Foundation and New America. And the purpose for deepening our federal portfolio, one is to bring money for our students here in California. Another is to influence federal rules and regulations that impact our students, like Pell Grants and our DACA students. And we also want to influencers to get to know California community colleges so they can be showcasing the work we are doing here as a model for national work. Want to recognize and thank the foundation for the reception on August 29th. I wanted to share this picture. I always believe a photo, is worth 1,000 words. And you can see all of the speakers who talked about Vision 2030. Thank you, Foundation. Thank you, League. Thank you, Women's Caucus. And thank you, APAHI, for co-hosting this incredible event. The energy in the room was absolutely wonderful. And I feel like we need to create more opportunities for us to come together as California community colleges. The governor signed an executive order on career education. I really appreciate that we were able to catch this photo of Cheryl Oschenbach and the governor and myself, 2 very tall people. So the executive order really positions us in an extremely good way. It's a 5-page document. Take a look at it. After a whole lot of whereas statements, fundamentally, The whereas statements mostly capture the historic investment the governor has made in higher education, and it's all kind of captured in that document together. It's quite amazing and quite remarkable. And then it really calls out two dates. By December 1 of this year, we are supposed to have preliminary recommendations, budget recommendations, and legislative changes. And our office is on it. We've got Vision 2030. We're so prepared. We're prepared now to submit our recommendations. We don't need to wait till December. We'll fine tune though. And so, Dr. Daisy Gonzalez and Dr. Navarrete will put together, package it in a right way to get that submitted. And by October 1st, the governor is looking for a new master plan on career education to integrate and align the programs funded by the state's historic investments. I took a moment to also reread Board Member Rawlings, the CTE state plan, and there's a lot of the good work done. So I feel like everything is coming together. All of the energy is truly converging. So as you can see, California Community Colleges, we take care of our students, we take care of our communities, and we take care of our planet. Our time is now. And that concludes my report.
And for the record, even her heels, she was pretty quick. Thank you so much for your report. Appreciate it. Next up, we have our consent calendar. We have one item 3.1, which is our July 24th board meeting minutes. Colleagues, does anybody have any questions or comments? Is there any public comments on this item?
The public comment period on the consent calendar is now open. We will start with public comments in Sacramento, then move on to virtual. For virtual attendees, please use the raised hand feature. Press *9 if you were calling in. You'll have 2 minutes. President Costa, we do not have any in-person comments and there are no hands raised at this time.
Great. With that, I would entertain a motion in a second.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda.
All right, we have Grande with a motion, Villalobos with the second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Next up, we have our action portion of the agenda, and we will start with item 4.1 presented by our general counsel, and it's approval of contracts and grants.
Thank you, President Costa, Vice President Aguinaldo, Chancellor, and members of the board. There are 5 groupings of contracts in the contracts and grants item this month. The first is a Salesforce contract to support internal program evaluation and data visualization within the Chancellor's office. The second is a contract with the State Store, Inc., a small business that provides content management system software licenses for the Chancellor's office related to our websites. Then there are amendments to the MESA grants, distributing unused MESA grant funds to existing MESA programs. Next is 45 Rising Scholars Network Juvenile Justice Grants. And just one point of clarification where the board item was not perfectly clear on this. This has a 4-year term, but is using funds across 5 years of appropriations, if you were wondering about what that chart meant. And then the last item is 4 High Roads Construction Careers Grants to support the development of credit for prior learning programs. And if there are questions, I'd be happy to take them. Otherwise,
Colleagues, any questions or comments? Board Member Epstein?
Yeah, I have quite questions about several of the contracts. On contracts 3 and 4, about MESA and Rising Scholars, according to the data you provided, there's been very little progress, improvement in the outcomes there. Do we have an explanation, or do we think that's going to change?
Aisha, would that be? I'm gonna phone a friend. Yep.
Oh, what are? Right, sorry about that, Member Epstein. What are you referring to exactly?
In contracts 3 and 4, there's data on the outcomes under both the Mesa and the Rising Scholars, and it doesn't show much differentiation from one year to the next. And I was just curious if we have a reason for that. I mean, I don't know if it was COVID or if there's and how we're thinking about moving forward.
Are you looking at the percentages under the accomplishments from the prior year? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily interpret it that way. Those are fairly high percentages, right? So you're seeing fairly high percentages of retention rates and transfer rates that are much higher than the state average. So I wouldn't necessarily interpret that as a stagnant results because those are exceptionally high for what is the norm in our system.
Yeah, I did think they were high. There was no change year over year. So it just means that we're at a continued level of excellence. Is that what you would say? All right. I also have a question about contract 5, a few of them. I wrote down these notes and I can't find the precise language that I wanted to talk about. But somewhere in there it said, and I'm quoting, meeting cadence and key communication artifacts. I didn't really understand what that meant. Is that a term that's familiar to you?
Roads construction.
Oh, okay. Where's that?
Thank you.
What's the last?
Yeah, goal number 3, develop meeting cadence and key communication artifacts for stakeholder engagement. I'm just curious what that means.
I'm going to presume it means, not looking directly at the language, just the sort of the engagement with the field and the partners in terms of establishing a meeting schedule and meeting processes.
Okay, then another question. Somewhere it says shared governance, and we've always used the term participatory governance instead of shared governance, and I hope that we continue to do that. And finally, I was just curious about where the money went. There's no money for LA, Orange County, or San Diego. Were they given money in a different area at a different time or something?
You're saying there's no money for them under
the HRCC funding allocations by region and college. It's Bay Area, Central Valley, and Inland Empire. It's unusual that all LA, Orange County, and San Diego are left out.
that one. I will have to take back and ask. I do not know.
Member Epstein, it's a competitive grant, and so based on the applications that were received, those were the highest scoring, highest scoring programs. That's why you see the areas that you see.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. I put you through all this just to know somebody reads these contracts every time. Don't want you to take anything for granted. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Colleagues, any other comments or questions? With that, I'd like to open it up to public comment, please.
The public comment period on item 4.1 is now open. We will begin with public comments in Sacramento and then move on to virtual. For virtual attendees, please use the raised hand feature. Press *9 if you are calling in. You'll have 2 minutes. I will hand it over to Vice President Aguinaldo to begin with public remarks in Sacramento.
Thank you very much. We have one public comment on this item from Wendy Brill Wynkoop.
Okay. Good afternoon, President Costa, Vice President Aguinaldo, Chancellor Christian, and the members of the Board of Governors. I'm Wendy Brill Wynkoop, President of the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges. And this comment is on behalf of the California Association of Mesa Directors. We appreciate the Chancellor's Office efforts to develop a timely methodology for distributing Mesa funds. Colleges indicate their Mesa participation statuses by May, providing an opportunity to allocate funds at the start of the academic year. Stable funding enables colleges to budget for ongoing Mesa positions and student support students properly. While we understand the complexities involved in receiving the full MESA allocations upfront empowers colleges to maximize program impact. We hope the Chancellor's Office will continue dialogue with the MESA directors to arrive at a solution that benefits our students. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for your comments, Wendy. Any other public comments?
President Costa, there are no other public comments at this time.
Thank you. With that, colleagues, I will entertain a motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have Epstein with a motion, Haynes with a second. With that, do we have to call roll call on this, General Counsel? Or can we do a voice vote? Great. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? Great, the motion carries. Dr. Lowe, you're up for the next item, so you're well placed. Our next item is item 4.2. This is a second reading of an item that we heard previously, and these are the proposed regulatory changes to the associate degree requirements.
Thank you very much, President Costa. Here with item 4.2 for second read. As a reminder, Board of Governors, we brought this item before you at the July meeting for first read. This is for revisions to the regulations governing the requirements for the associate's degree, and is a fairly exhaustive revision of the sections that you see listed there in your digest. Since we were here with you in July, we had public comment. We also received public comment here here at the board meeting in July. And based on those public comments, you'll see two revisions. If within the regulations package, you turn to section 55061, you'll see one revision. It's sometimes hard to track these, but remember, we're looking for the double underlines or the double strike through for revisions since first read. So you'll see revisions to the description of ethnic studies, clause 6 under 55061, based on feedback from the Community College's Ethnic Studies Faculty Council, where you will see some of the language was shifted to align with the language that you'll see in other places like AB 1460 and the work that's moving forward across our system already for establishing ethnic studies courses. So you'll see that one change there. And then moving on to section 55062, you'll see another change in clause E there. We received a number of comments of concern around this shift in language from regionally accredited institutions to institutionally accredited institutions. That change was made to align with a policy change with the U.S. Department of Education. The CSU has also made that change, but the UC is not making that change. So there was concern about those differences there and how that could negatively impact students. To cover that concern, we did retain the language in E to allow to align with the U.S. Department of Education language, but added a new clause G that students who intend to transfer shall be advised of limitations transfer institutions may place on the transferability of credit, et cetera. So put that in there as a flag to colleges, as is currently the case, right? That given that we have very different transfer requirements, even now across the different segments of higher education, colleges do have to take on that responsibility to make sure that they are informing students of what credits can transfer and what credits cannot. So putting that flag there in regulation. Those were the only two major changes. So with that, I'll take any questions or comments.
Colleagues, any questions or comments on the proposed regulations? Board Member Brown.
I got a question from some faculty who work in the American institutions area, and they were wondering what the discussion was around the inclusion of that or not including that in our statewide requirements.
Yeah, so what you will see, again, going back to 55061, you will see that we didn't make many changes to those key areas that were historically within regulation. And the changes that we did make were to align with CalGETC, since that is now the transfer general education pattern.
Thanks, colleagues. Any other questions or comments? With that, I'd like to see if there's any public comment on the item.
The public comment period on item 4.2 is now open. We will begin with public comments in Sacramento and then move on to virtual. For virtual attendees, please use the raise hand feature. Press *9 if you are calling in. You will have 2 minutes. I will hand it over to Vice President Aguinaldo to begin with public remarks in Sacramento.
Thank you very much. We have just one public comment from Rachel Cohen Peralta.
Hi, good afternoon, and thanks for the opportunity to speak this afternoon. My name is Rachel Cohen Peralta. I'm the Articulation Officer at City College of San Francisco. I'm grateful for the work that you're doing to advance equity and eliminate confusion through revisions to the Title V Associate Degree section. Sometimes small changes in language have deeper effects. In the first read that you saw in July, the language for 55061C6, which is the ethnic studies, that language included baccalaureate courses in ethnic studies, comma, and then the list of the 4 autonomous disciplines. The second read is changed and adjusted to baccalaureate level courses in the 4 autonomous disciplines within ethnic studies, and then lists those 4 disciplines. Changing that language to within ethnic studies eliminates the option of a simple ethnic studies prefix from the choices, which actually, in my opinion, undermines the Cal-GETC alignment that this revision is working towards. Ethnic studies is an allowed prefix for CSU and UC in the general education guidelines. Disallowing an ethnic studies prefix would result in courses that are approved for Cal-GETC, yet not at the local level. It limits smaller colleges that lack the resources for separate departments in each of the 4 autonomous disciplines. And it also hinders larger schools with further discipline specificity. I urge you to leave in the ethnic studies prefix option and say something such as courses fulfilling this requirement may include
30
baccalaureate
seconds.
level courses in ethnic studies or one of the 4 autonomous disciplines. Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Any additional public comment on this item?
Yes, President Costa, we have several hands raised. Let's start with Josh Franco. You have control of your mic and can address the board.
So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, individuals and members of the board. You might hear that I have my 10-month-old son in the backdrop. I was calling to share my view that the changes to the general education pattern or curriculum for our system should include an American institutions requirement. I, along with other faculty, have submitted a memo that basically call for including 6 units of American institutions courses from political science and history, U.S. history, as well as increasing the number of social and behavioral science units from the minimum of 3 per semester or 3 semester units to 6 semester units. I just want to point out that, you know, I attended community college and transferred to probably UC Merced, and then returned to the community college as a faculty member. And knowing that our community college system are basically bastions of democracy, both at the local level with locally elected boards, with our ability to respond to local demands and to essentially serve our local populations. I think it's important that we all have each of our students engage in their American democracy by knowing their history and by understanding the inner workings of our government. So with that, I appreciate the time. Again, I would suggest that the proposed amendments in the memo that we submitted at the end of the 15-day public comment period be included in this regulatory change. Thank you.
Our next commenter is Juliet Parker. You have control of your mic and can address the board.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Juliet Parker, as was said, I'm the articulation officer at San Diego Mesa College, and I am also an affiliate member of the California Community College Ethnic Studies Faculty Council. I am grateful for this day to come. We thank the board and all the folks who worked to try to revise the Title V language to reflect ethnic studies as it should have been from the very beginning. And although my colleague has a different opinion, I have to shed some light on that information. Ethnic studies was never meant to be a discipline in and of itself. It is the collective term used when you're referring to the 4 autonomous disciplines that represent ethnic studies. And so this is our goal to be achieved here today. I will also mention through the process of meeting ethnic studies requirements, particularly at the CSU and UC, the ethnic studies so-called subject indicator has been applied fraudulently by many institutions who are using it to put onto courses that are non-ethnic studies courses and then passing them along as if they are. More than half the
30
course.
seconds.
Thank you. More than half the courses on that approved for CSU GE Breadth are from non-ethnic studies disciplines. So we are trying to make sure our students receive a quality education in ethnic studies and hope that we can achieve that in the California community college system. And if more information is needed, I have a 50-page report that sheds light on this issue. So thank you so much.
Next, we have Ann Donegan. You have control of your mic and can address the board.
Thank you so much, Board of Governors. Thank you for this time. My name is Ann Donegan, and I've been teaching history at Santa Rosa Junior College, and I love that you had the Polly Hall celebration in your presentation today. I've been teaching at SRJC since 1995. Along with dozens of California Community College faculty colleagues, I am supporting both the ethnic studies requirement and the proposed amendment that is calling for all community college graduates to take 6 units in American institutions and ideals, 3 units in U.S. history, and 3 units in a U.S. political science course. There have been 2 recent ASCCC resolutions in support of all students learning about American institutions and ideals. As you all know, our system is the largest public college system in the world, often serving our most vulnerable and marginalized students. Many of our students do not go on to a 4-year college or university, so it is crucial that all of our graduates take classes about the rule of law, how our government works, and U.S. history. History and political science courses teach the nuts and bolts of our government, as well as the fragility and importance of our democratic institutions. They also teach us about marginalized groups who, through political action and civil disobedience, were able to expand civil rights for more Americans. Such examples show students—
30 seconds.
Okay, such examples show students how to be active citizens and to demand the promises of American democracy. At SRJC, we have this requirement, and my colleagues and I want all of our students to learn this important information. At this time in our nation's history, where our democratic institutions are under attack, we need more Californians to understand how our government works and how to be civically engaged. Please support this important amendment, and I thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Megan Sweeney. You have control of your mic and can address the board.
Hello and thank you. This is Megan Sweeney. I am a political science faculty member at City College of San Francisco and appreciate you taking these public comments. I am here to speak in favor of the amendment to modify the Title V code to include American institutions an ideal requirement. Similar to Josh and Anne Marie, we are in support of adding a Section 7 to 55061 that would include 6 additional units of U.S. history and U.S. government. As a faculty member who teaches political science, American government courses, I just am a strong believer that our community colleges are just an essential component of our democracy. We are really the engine of democracy, giving opportunities for upward mobility for our students. And a key component of this is teaching our students how to be informed citizens and know how to participate in our democracy. We strongly believe that in American institutions, an ideal requirement requirement is an essential component of a liberal arts degree, imperative for all students graduating from California community colleges. So thank you for considering this amendment.
Our last hand raised is Jordan Campos. You have control of the mic and can address the board.
Good afternoon, board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to keep this brief. This mainly relates to item 6.3, as it is pertinent to input that is conducive towards members of the California Army National Guard and Air National Guard as they attempt to take courses at institutions within the California Community College system. Often we are limited on time due to activations for fire, COVID deployments, and serving the state in a humanitarian role. And so what I would like to ask for at this time is consideration for future legislation on online asynchronous course flexibility for current service members, which can be validated at the state level.
Sir, I
And-
think you're speaking on another agenda topic. We're not on that item right now.
Oh, sorry, as I was.
Sorry, we're going to get to that in a little bit.
There
Okay.
are no other hands raised.
Thanks so much, Gary. With that, colleagues, yes, board member Epstein.
Hi, I know we don't usually respond to comments that we get verbally, but I was just curious about this American Institutions suggestion. Is that something that was submitted in advance and the staff considered, or is this something that's kind of brand new?
Happy to address that, member Epstein. No, this is new coming out of public comment. We would not recommend that inclusion for a number of reasons. One of the reasons we would not recommend that is because these changes are aligned with CalGETC, which is the transfer general education pattern. And we all know that we are in a transfer landscape where we're trying to not further confuse students, right? We don't want to have a general education pattern for our local degrees that we are requiring that is different than CalGETC. Also, you'll see here that in these standards, we have already increased to 21 units with the inclusion of ethnic studies. Additional inclusions, we would say, are not in alignment with our goal to reduce unit accumulation. And then lastly, and probably most important, these are minimum standards for the associate's degree. Local districts and colleges are free to have additional general education or associate's degree requirements and courses that are required, which is actually the norm in our system, right? That this is setting the floor upon which colleges build. So local districts and colleges are free to add some of those additional requirements about American institutions as requirements for their local degrees if locally they deem that that is important and necessary.
Can I ask, so I'm looking at this and 55061A, I don't know, maybe it's B. The one that lists, so B4, it looks like social and behavioral sciences. I mean, here it lists as courses fulfilling this requirement may include, cultural anthropology, cultural geography, economics, history, political science, et cetera. Could it not list American institutions as something that would fulfill the social and behavioral sciences?
We could take that back and look at it. We do want to be clear that these are sort of referencing general example. These are not a requirement, right?
Right.
So these do not list the courses that must fall under each category. It's just trying to give a sense. But I think
Yeah,
that
it's given as
also
such as, and so it maybe it doesn't create a full-on requirement, but it does give a nod to the comments that came in.
we could consider that. I would recommend we be careful because then I would presume we receive other comments about other such as is, right, where particular disciplines or topics want to be called out. We do want to be mindful that in terms of the language of these core general education areas, these have existed in our system for quite some time, and that language has not been changed. And so if we want to do that, that will require us sort of relaunching a process with our academic senate, with our statewide curriculum committee that would be far more exhaustive to really think about the language around general education categories. That really is a professional matter that we need to engage faculty in.
Well, just as I'm looking at the statute that's been crossed out, I don't see anything related to social and behavioral sciences. I may be missing it. So
It's definitely there.
Okay,
Yes.
I don't know where it is, but I'm just looking so anyway, I don't see it.
So maybe it's somewhere that I'm not, maybe it's, oh, here it is. This is where it is. I see it. Okay. But it, yeah, I see it now. It's like on page 7, crossed out. Okay.
Board Member Brown.
So all of the amendments that are currently in front of us were vetted through the ASCCC plenary process. And one of the public comments mentioned that there was already support for American institutions, but that particular resolution was directed towards the CSU. So I think it's important to listen to voices at all stages, but that particular resolution, I don't want it to be misrepresented, because if all 116 colleges say, yes, we want to see the CSU do this, that doesn't mean they want to do it for the associate degree. So I think it's important to follow the processes and take that idea to the next plenary is what I would suggest to the faculty who have, because this is not the end. This is not the only time we're going to open up Title V and make adjustments. I think that's pretty much what we do here. So please bring those ideas through the process and have all 116 colleges weigh in. I can tell you in LACCD, we already have that requirement because we can above and beyond what the state is asking. But if people statewide want to have it, we can. But let's follow the process to make sure that it's vetted and it's really everyone's voice. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, and I understand that, and I was wondering that when the comments were coming in, but I do think it's worth considering, maybe not now, but down the line, and understanding that resolution was related to CSU is important. There's a lot of people that never get to CSU or UCs, and they may only get education through us. And there are a lot of people that need to better understand our American institutions. And it's just worth considering. Maybe not now because we want to lock these in, but as you said, this is a continuation and an iteration. So it is something worth thinking about, I think. I'm just from the comments made, I was actually I was intrigued by it.
I'll take a presidential prerogative and say on the eve of a federal shutdown, great point. But also to Board Member Brown's point, we also have our regulatory process as a board, and this was presented in July. And our staff, I think, does an excellent job of responding to every written comment they receive, whether it is to incorporate it into the second reading or to say, why not? And so that process was available for this subject matter as well. With that, I am happy to entertain a motion and a second on the item.
On that note, I will move approval.
Second.
We have Haynes and Anderson. With that, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Great, the motion carries. Next up, I will have to say, Executive Vice Chancellor Navarrete, you had me thoroughly confused because in all my time on the board, I have never seen a second reading where we had no public comment. So I was absolutely convinced that it was first reading and I didn't have my script. So anyway, thank you to our general counsel for availing me of that. But with that, please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Sorry, our schedule's a little bit different today. So just wanted to share kind of the wide support. Part of the reason we haven't gotten comments on this is that we continue to have wide support for the regulation that you will see in item 4.3, which is scheduled maintenance resources for affordable student housing projects. Let's go to the next slide. Just a quick overview of what the changes that this regulation would do. It provides, first, it adds the definition of affordable student housing to our regulations. And we are using we are aligning to the definition that is used for the Affordable Student Housing Grant Program and the various projects that you were seeing constructed across the state, including like Tahoe and elements of the Santa Rosa project that many of you visited. So we are aligning with that. And the reason we're doing that is what we want to allow projects that are intended to provide affordable rents to not have to have operating costs where they need to increase rents for students just to maintain a safe, clean, livable facility. So that is one strategy that emerged from the recommendations of the Affordable Student Housing Task Force that was led by this board. So that is one component. Next component, please. Next slide. Again, it adds the definition of a project to facilities, again, that are eligible to receive scheduled maintenance in years when scheduled maintenance is provided. And we also aligned another component that was a recommendation of the Affordable Student Housing Task Force, where we wanted to move away from the term dormitory and really start using these as residential halls or housing. And so those are the two key changes that this regulation does. Next slide, let me just briefly, you heard Chancellor Christian provide some details, but if you were interested in what the solution was, a quick status update, there were amendments made to the Budget Act in what's called Budget Bill Junior number 2. And it clarifies that resources will be provided on an ongoing basis for projects so that they can remain as affordable student housing projects. The funding source is identified as subsidies for providing affordable housing, but really what that means is that a college can then use that subsidy to cover the cost of the construction. The second component is the key one that commits where the administration and legislature have committed to identifying a state funding solution for affordable student housing. And so we expect to work with the legislature and the governor through the fall and see something emerge with details of what that state funding solution will look like at the governor's January budget in 2024. So only a few short months away. Wanted to provide all of those. And these are just a quick map of the projects that are in round 1. So with that, happy to take any questions, and thank you for your continued support of these efforts.
Thank you, colleagues. Any questions or comments?
Just a comment, I'm really happy to see the maintenance piece in that because that's one of the most non-controllable costs that really affect what students have to pay for housing, and people always forget that part of it. And I tell people often contractors don't give us a discount because we're building student housing. So thank you for including that. It's very important.
I just want to add my kudos to the housing language because I really didn't think it was possible. So you pulled a rabbit out of the hat. And, I think it's part of our journey as a system to make sure policymakers understand that we do not have a centralized debt function like our sister institutions. And so the financing tools that we require are by that very nature, very different. So thank you for all of your work on that. It's very much appreciated. With that, is there any public comment on this item?
The public comment period in item 4.3 is now open. We will begin with public comments in Sacramento and then move on to virtual. For virtual attendees, please use the raised hand feature. Press *9 if you are calling in. You will have 2 minutes. President Costa, we do not have any in-person comments on this, and there are no hands raised at this time.
Great. Thank you. With that, colleagues, I'd be happy to entertain a motion in a second.
I'll move.
Perry and LeGrand. With that, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries. Next up, we have another proposed regulatory action, item 4.4. We have heard this one before as well. So it is the action on dual enrollment.
Thank you very much. Board members, here again with another second read of regulatory action here for dual enrollment. Again, we brought the first read before you in July, where we are making 2 specific updates to the regulations around dual enrollment. Very similar to the last item, we did receive public comments on this item, and that public comment has led to 2 changes, which you'll see in the document. One you'll see in the very first line of the regulatory change. We had previously called out high schools and middle schools, and then there was a potential change to middle colleges. But in reality, dual enrollment is for K-12 pupils generally, and it comes in different forms, whether they're in middle college or early college. And so you see, we've cleaned that up to simply say pupils to make that clear, as opposed to trying to specify all the types. There was also concern with the original language we had in Clause B that it could be interpreted to mean that we were saying colleges and districts could not collect student transcripts and student information. So you'll see the revision to clarify that community college districts may accept this information, but cannot require it of students. And again, as we talked about at the last meeting, the purpose here is to really incentivize colleges and districts to get the necessary student information directly from their K-12 partners and not burden students with having to gather that information and ultimately eliminating this as a barrier that might hinder, in particular, low-income students from accessing dual enrollment. So those are the only two changes. So with that, I'll take any questions or comments.
I'm gonna just make one comment because this is my baby in a lot of ways. But the superintendent president of Shasta College raised the same issue I did, which is that in our proposed regulation, there still may be forms that families are required. And you had pointed out to me, and it's in your response here, just so everybody understands, because that's what the statute dictates. However, I've asked our staff to maybe pursue a statutory change to that to ensure that we're creating the least amount of barriers possible for students to participate in this program. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight that his thought was sort of similar to mine. With that, any other comments or questions from the board?
Just have one comment, and I just want to thank you for the responses. I mean, I find it really helpful, and it shows that you guys are very, very responsive to when the public makes comments. I think kind of looking what Amy had said earlier, but as I read these, I mean, it really is helpful for me as a board member, kind of understanding that you're really taking the comments seriously. And I did see the changes being made. So thank you for taking the time to do that and continue to share.
Thank you. With that, is there any public comment on this item?
The public comment period on item 4.4 is now open. We will begin with public comments in Sacramento and then move on to virtual. For virtual attendees, please use the raise hand feature. Press *9 if you're calling in. You'll have 2 minutes. I will hand it over to Vice President Aguinaldo to begin with public remarks in Sacramento.
Thank you very much. We have one public comment on this item. It's from Sandra Guzman.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Sandra Guzman. I am counseling faculty and academic senate president at Sacramento City College. I worked as a professional expert consultant on our Hispanic Serving Institute dual credit grant. I selected the courses to be offered by extracting those that are embedded across all 3 general ed curriculum so that we would not commit any student to any one patterns at such a young age or stage in their education. In addition, I contributed to the student service and engagement components, paying close attention to culturally and linguistically relevant service deliveries. I support dual credit. It's about increasing access and opportunity and establishing a college-going culture, not only for the student involved, but for the entire family. Our potential for impact is far beyond the individual student that we are serving. As I listen in on some faculty concerns regarding dual credit or dual enrollment, their age and stage of development is often noted as an area of concern. I argue that we have a unique opportunity to create programs, not just classes, that serve the whole student. We know what stage of development they are in and the milestones associated with this stage. Some are a sense of belonging, identity, developing and applying abstract thinking, and ultimately self-efficacy. We, as a California community college system, are uniquely placed to help shape all of these milestones.
30 seconds.
Have child development experts among our faculty who can provide necessary professional development to help us align our teaching methods. Our programs can be truly holistic for both the student and the faculty involved. I think of the undocumented student who can leave high school with a certificate supported by the services and resources of our centers, counselors, peer mentors, and more. By the age of 18, they can have attended a workshop on how to establish a tax ID number, a resume.
That is time. Thank you.
And have acquired all the interpersonal and academic skills necessary to excel. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Guzman. Any other public comments on this item?
There are no virtual hands raised.
Thank you so much. With that, colleagues, I'll entertain a motion and a second. of
Second.
Villalobos and Rawlings. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Next up, we have, I think, kind of the item maybe of items, which is item 4.4 or 4.5, pardon me. It's Vision 2030, a roadmap for the California community colleges.
All right. All right, we're going to get our team up here. Deputy Chancellor, Executive Vice Chancellor Navarrete, and Executive Vice Chancellor Lowe. John Head's got to pass because there were only 3 chairs. So I do have some introductory comments, about 8 minutes. And then I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Chancellor and then we'll open it up. So at the July Board of Governors meeting, my first meeting, we presented for first reading the preliminary framework for Vision 2030. The PowerPoint that came to you, members of the Board of Governors, was version 10 and had 19 slides. Since then, the team from the Chancellor's office has actively engaged with the field to bring you the 17-page document for your action. The 3 goals remain the same: equity in success, equity in access, equity in support. I think all of California can recite the 3 goals because we've been going far and wide with Vision 2030. The 3 strategic directions remain the same: equitable baccalaureate attainment, equitable workforce and economic development, generative AI, and the future of learning. The 6 outcomes largely remain the same: increased completion, increased baccalaureate attainment, earn a living wage, increased participation, increased drawing down of federal, state, and county resources, reduce the number of units to degree completion. All outcomes disaggregated to help see and then eliminate disproportionate impact on groups. The 17 actions have been reduced to 12, mostly because of John Stanskas, I must say. This is a living document. What I mean by that is we will have an opportunity every year to see if there are emerging issues that need to be included, and we will put out an updated edition of Vision 2030. So you might expect edition 2024, edition 2025. This way, we will continue to support innovation, to support creativity in the field as they emerge in our work across the colleges. It will keep Vision 2030, our plan, fresh. It will keep it relevant, and it will keep it forward-looking. At this time, I will read my cover letter to introduce you to Vision 2030 and to keep me focused. So the letter goes: Dear Californians, I am delighted to present Vision 2030, a roadmap for California community colleges, a living document collaboratively developed to be collaboratively maintained, designed to provide focus and direction for our 116 community colleges in this great and diverse state of California. Our challenges are many, yet our greatest challenges enable us to do our greatest work, triggering our creativity and collective brilliance. Vision 2030 envisions a higher education system more inclusive of all Californians that ensures access points for every learner across race, ethnicity, region, class, and gender to enter a pathway with tailored supports, with exit points to transfer or complete a community college baccalaureate, or obtain a job with family-sustaining wages. Vision 2030 calls on our system to continue to optimize educational technologies, both existing and emergent, Students should not have to navigate needlessly complicated systems and processes that we have yet to improve. We are only seeing early indications of what can be done with generative AI with an accelerating rate of change. California community colleges will engage eyes wide open with the potential risks, and there are many, and benefits, which there are many, of this powerful tool. Vision 2030 calls on California's community colleges to lead in climate action, in workforce development, and in our built spaces and daily operations. The 116 colleges and their centers across California, even in some of the most remote locations, are primed to build the next wave of climate action solutions, like the creation of microgrids for grid resilience, particularly in our disinvested communities. Our science, arts, and humanities curricula also need to instill the importance of taking care of our planet. I'm excited that Vision 2030 re-examines what access truly means when we lead with equity. We are the largest system of higher education in the nation, serving 1.9 million students, and yet 6.8 million Californians who graduated high school have not completed a college credential. This group is highly racialized, disproportionately likely to be low income, and struggle to find gainful employment. Vision 2030 asks the fundamental question: why have we not yet reached these individuals? When students cannot find their way to college, it is our responsibility to bring college to them. This means partnering with community-based organizations, worker-represented organizations, and industry leaders to take college to our future learners. I am energized by the conversations on how colleges can recognize learning wherever it happens, in the classroom or outside the classroom. For example, on-the-job training through apprenticeships and internships, so that all Californians have an opportunity to initiate and accumulate college credits towards a college credential. Vision 2030 calls for establishing the infrastructure for credit for prior learning, a critical element for socioeconomic mobility for our adult learners. Vision 2030 prioritizes skill building for jobs that pay living wages, while recognizing that a baccalaureate degree is a powerful predictor of higher wages. All Californians must have a viable path to completing a bachelor's degree if they choose to do so. We will engage with purpose, creativity, thoughtfulness, and urgency. California is a world leader in innovation, and so are its community colleges. Vision 2030 calls on the California Community College people to rise, to build the necessary systems to bust through administrative barriers, to reform policy that unlocks potential, and to bring resources for action at scale and with fidelity. We commit to taking care of our students, our communities, and our planet. Our time is now. And at this time, I'll turn it over to our wonderful Deputy Chancellor, Dr. Daisy Gonzalez.
I'm clapping on this end. Thank you, Chancellor Christian, President Costa, Vice President Aguinaldo, members of the board. Good afternoon. I want us to just pause and accept this moment and really be proud of the work that has been done here today. This is an action item, and so I will bring you back at the end. We'll bring it back to Chancellor Christian. It is an action item that brings you a new vision for our system, a roadmap center in urgent action led by Chancellor Christian, with a lot of hard work and humility and a lot of courage and a lot of optimism by the team, by our entire system over a very short period of time. And so I want to spend some time walking you through that process and that statewide feedback that we received and where we're headed next. Why? Because this board is now getting ready for the future. And it's important to understand where we have been to know where we are going. And the process to implement is when the real work begins. So with that, we look to the past so that we can move to the future. Our process actually started in May. Chancellor Christian and I locked arm in arm, and she led several retreats with our team, with the foundation, with the league, and convened all of us, if you recall, over a period of retreats to really begin to create the foundation. We would not be here had it not been for hard work, trust, respect, and transparency, even in that early phase. Starting off in May, we led that internal work, those internal retreats, really thinking through how it would impact our investments, our divisions. That then led us to really launch our work with our consultation council. The council heard this item June, July, August, September, through a very different process that we have ever done before, really engaging them in projects, written feedback, even homework, believe it or not. And so I want to just take a moment and acknowledge some of those consultation council members who are in those monthly meetings. Our SSCCC, these are our students, our Academic Senate for California Community Colleges, FAC, CTA, our CSSOs, these are our student services professionals, our chief instructional officers, CFT, ACRO, our human resources professionals, and CSCA, and probably 2 or 3 more that I'm missing right now. But that council put in a lot of work to get us here. And there is an attachment with all of that feedback that we received as a part of this item. In addition to that, we've also attached our statewide engagement. So this was a 3-pronged approach, really starting that work early on with campus summits. And thank you, many of you joined Chancellor Christian, especially around dual enrollment and climate change, creating that momentum, that movement for the system. Then we held several different meetings with specific associations to collect their feedback. We held system webinars, multiple meetings with national as well as state social justice and education partners. All of that is what we now bring to you, that collective wisdom, which then led to all of you working on weekends, giving us feedback, reviewing prior iterations of this work. And so really what you see in front of you is an entire system locking arm in arm to really focus on the future. Your action today is really around 3 key areas. Your 3 goals, and I won't test you, but your 3 Vision 2030 goals, your 3 strategic directions, and your metrics, which, as you know, is the most fundamentally important part of implementation and for future leadership by this board. After we led that process, we really wanted to figure out how we could improve every single time. And there are 4 themes that really emerged from that collective feedback, from consultation council to the internal work to our statewide feedback. And they fit in 4 key themes, which led to what you now see in front of you, Vision 2030, a new updated report, and it's now on our website. The final version, meaning final for this board meeting, was uploaded last night. But the 4 areas of feedback were really this. How do we integrate our prior work, specifically related to our DIA commitment as a system? How do we actually then implement? How is this plan sustainable? How do we make sure that is systemic, that we are reaching transformation at scale? And then really one key area of feedback was also around AI, the future of education, but really in a positive way, the system wanting to learn more, to engage and receive resources and information so that they can innovate. And then ongoing engagement. And you heard Chancellor Christian say this was collaboratively developed and it will be collaboratively maintained. So with those 4 key themes, we made several changes, which is why you now have a final version. And I want to ask my colleague, Executive Vice Chancellor Dr. Aisha Lowe, to share a little bit about where we integrated that feedback.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gonzalez. Board members, as Dr. Gonzalez noted, you really will see the integration of the feedback throughout the entire document. So we will not point out everything, but do know the language that you're hearing. In some cases, even the tone and tenor of the language that you're hearing is a result of the feedback that was received. I will focus specifically and briefly on the actions that fall under the strategic directions and call out a few that we think are important examples of the important feedback that was received. So one is under Equitable Baccalaureate degree attainment. You'll find it at the bottom of page 11. And we wanted to call this out because we received, as Dr. Gonzalez spoke to, a number of pieces of feedback of really challenging us to continue to call out explicitly our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And so we've made sure to do that. So you'll see the strategic action 1, that all actions, policies, and procedures will be enacted centering equity and inclusion and dismantling prejudice and racism. So we wanted to put that front and center and make very clear to the system and to all those who gave us feedback that that remains a key element of who we are as California Community Colleges and the work that is before us, and that work will continue. You will also see there within the actions further down on page 12, we received a lot of feedback about these key workforce sectors: healthcare, climate, STEM, and education, and feedback as to, depending on the region, what might be the priority healthcare sector there. So we wanted to make sure that we stated very clearly that these are 4 key priority workforce sectors for the state, right? They are not meant to be exclusive or exhaustive, but they are areas where we will have particular attention and focus and investment at a state level. Of course, knowing that within a region, they may be a particular high in demand particular workforce sector that doesn't fall into one of these categories. This is in no way meant to communicate any exclusion of those other opportunities. You'll see the continued strong call out, not just to our goals around continuing to help students to transfer, to complete, to minimize unit accumulation, but this call out in strategic action 6 around our intersegmental partnerships with our 4-year partners, and how key that they are going to be to us meeting those goals around credit mobility, as well as transfer opportunities. And you'll see throughout just an alignment between the goals, the strategies, the actions, the outcomes, and then the demonstration of projects that we're moving forward as well. So a lot is there, and we're happy to take any questions or comments. We're going to hand it back to Dr. Gonzalez.
I'm going to begin to close and just say we were very intentional to not have a PowerPoint. And that is because we are 11 versions into a PowerPoint. 5 versions of this document, and we really want this document to be the center of attention because it really is the culminating document of a lot of hard work. And with that in mind, I want to talk a little bit about next steps because the real work starts after this board takes action. You heard Chancellor Christian share a little bit about how your board meetings may change, how this is a living document that we will bring back every single year. As a part of your board meetings, and I can share this as a leader who is very proud to be a part of this team and has been a part of this agency for nearly 6 years, right? So looking back at seeing what it took to implement a prior version of this document, but really focusing in on the future. And as a part of that, really thinking through annual reviews, every time we have a board meeting, just as Chancellor Christian has done every single time since she started, focusing in on those strategic directions, those metrics, so that we know constantly where this system is and where our students are. So immediately after an implementation plan, which we always bring you back after you take action, in January, we committed to our consultation council, and in every single meeting, if there are changes that need to be made, we will look to make them at your January board meeting. I think earlier on, we were calling it beta phase, Chancellor Christian. But so immediately after wanting to just put on your radar an implementation plan, which you typically ask us for, and then at your January board meeting, any necessary changes, bringing them back to your January 2024 meeting. Now, what happens immediately after this meeting? In the first 30 days, it's really about aligning our organization and communicating with our system. Internally, you can expect system-wide communication, as well as with our legislative and DC partners, are really focusing in on that internal coherence for our divisions, not just for our own executive team, but across the organization. And then laser focus on what Chancellor Christian calls level 3, which is different and really an incredible concept. Level 3 is, then how do you take those 3 strategic directions and actually implement them? What does it mean to actually have actions? And so you can imagine that we'll be working very closely on 3 new iterations of similar to this, but really guided towards our system. What does it look like for people, resources, policy, and system design across our 3 strategic directions? And then long-term, we did commit to long-term engagement. This fall, you can expect for our system to have town halls, more state and federal advocacy, which we will need all of your collective support in, an entire redesign as we think about programs, because now our vision requires that of us. And then, of course, our ongoing stakeholder engagement. That will be ongoing. And so with that, I'd like to hand it back to Chancellor Christian.
The Board of Governors, the executive leadership of the California Community College Chancellor's Office, which includes Deputy Chancellor Daisy Gonzalez, Executive Vice Chancellor Lizette Navarrete, Executive Vice Chancellor Aisha Lowe, Executive Vice Chancellor John Hetz, and the rest of the team, and we recommend for your approval Vision 2030, a roadmap for California community colleges. Thank you.
Thank you for a great presentation. I'm sure my colleagues have, and Pam is biting at the bit. Questions and comments?
I haven't said much today.
Hey, you saved your firepower for the important stuff. With that, Board Member Haynes.
I took notes because I think now I've lost my notes, but I've took notes. And let me just say that I'm really glad that you didn't have a PowerPoint, because the actual document that we read that was 21 pages took a life of its own relative to where we want to go. And I think that when I looked at the other iterations of the PowerPoint, I got lost in its abstraction. I got lost because it needed to have in a PowerPoint very few words that were not necessarily descriptive or really allowed us to understand the meaning of what we were trying to do. So let me start off with that. What I've come away with are a couple of things. One, that as a Board of Governors, as the Chancellor's Office, the things that we're asking our districts, our individual colleges to do, one of them is to take action. That's a big word, but to take action, and that means move along. And so I really appreciate that we're going to be looking at this document. We talk about iteration, but we're going to be looking at this document sort of as a living document. And if we're doing that, we've talked about in so many different forums, the need for data-informed decision-making. That has to be a highlight. It has to be sort of at the top of that list. And we're going to need data from everybody, because this is a systems change, and it's really critical to know and to share and to engage with our colleges in a very different way. Because without any judgment, that continuous improvement part, it's not just important for it's more important for the colleges to have this information that's also usable. So systems pieces well, as a trustee, there is a frustration among us in many cases that the decisions we have to make are sort of 9 months after the fact. And I know it's a frustration for us here, because in that 9 months, some of our students will have left. Okay, because we're not talking to the same audience, and and then we have another 9 months in the next iteration. So I see this as promising. You can tell from I'm very excited about this. And I'm hoping that my colleagues, other trustees and other colleges are going to be excited about that as well. It's incumbent upon us to build that relationship in a way that we're all rowing the boat in the same direction. We're all in this together. The operative word that the chancellor uses, our time is now. And so I'd like to move this item if I can.
You can.
At some point.
Yes,
Okay,
I'll come
let's
back to you. I have board member Anderson.
I don't want to lose it.
She's called it, everyone.
Thank you.
Pam covered most of it, but I just wanted, excuse me. I just wanted to say bravo to the staff, especially as it relates to AI, because I think a lot of the things that Board Member Haynes was talking about, we've been on a couple of calls with the chancellor that have been really educational. And, I just want to encourage us to continue to try to be ahead of the information curve, because this thing is going to be moving so quickly. And I do think it can be to our advantage as well as to the students' advantage, the teachers' advantage, everybody else. So I want to say bravo to the staff, and especially bravo to the chancellor for all her work.
Board member Perry.
I want to echo those bravos, and I think we're so brave to take on AI. It's a gnarly beast. So I think it's really forward-thinking of us to say we're going to tackle this together. And one of the through lines that really emerged when in your letter and when you were talking, and kudos to the staff, because this is a living, breathing, exciting, actionable document. So I'm glad you didn't do a PowerPoint, because they aren't any of that. But I think the through line that really emerged to me is this idea that learning happens everywhere. And I think that is such a guiding principle for us. If we're going to meet the governor's goals and the roadmap, we have to think that learning happens in every facet of your life and everything that you do, and build that into the curriculum and the way we reward and award our students degrees. So I heard you saying that and I loved it. And we all should aspire to move at the speed that you move, in heels or not. So thank you to you and the staff. This is a really exciting moment for all of us.
Thanks. Next up, we have board member Grande and then LeGrand.
Once again, kudos to the chancellor's office staff, the chancellors, and to us, the Board of Governors, who were able to participate so intricately in all of these different elements of what is Vision 2030. My particular enthusiasm is for recognizing the value of credit for prior learning and our community college baccalaureate degrees, not focusing so extensively on what is the traditional transfer pathway, but understanding that our students come to us for workforce preparation and career development that can take place on our college campuses, and that we do a phenomenal job in expanding the value of the community college baccalaureate degree beyond what our students traditionally have done, which is come to us for their transfer preparation and gone off to our system partners, but actually leveraging all of the expertise that we have on our campuses. As one may say, our time is now, and another may say, let's get to work, because now is the time to operationalize the Vision 2030 and to bring it to the forefront and understand how valuable the work that we do every single day in our 116 colleges are for our students, for our communities, and of course, for the state of California. Thank you for the work.
At the risk of being redundant, thank you all for the work that you've done on this. I think from where I started and was starting, I think similar to Pam, it was like okay, I'm getting confused in the PowerPoints. But as I've been going around California and as people find out that I'm on this board, and I've been actually able to say, you know, we're talking about equity and access, equity and support, and equity and success. And then when I talk about the workforce empowerment piece of it, people get really, really excited. And so I want to thank you for giving me an elevator speech that I didn't anticipate having. But as I've been out there talking, I was just down in Southern California, UC Irvine, for a Black alumni event over the weekend. I was talking about the community colleges and what we're trying to do and how excited I was about the work that's here. And people were really like, oh, that's really fascinating. That's really, tell me more, tell me more. And so I think this is going to get legs and really, it's probably going to get track shoes and really start to run. It's a lot of work. I mean, I'm looking at this, ready to roll up my sleeves and lead my little subgroup that I've been assigned to. So I'll be meeting with Rebecca, I guess, hopefully to figure out more about what I need to do. But thank you for the opportunity to give something to celebrate and give something to share with the community. And I've been saying this to anybody who will listen to me, that the community colleges with 1.9 million students is the economic engine. I mean, you're 3 times the size of UC and CSU together, right? And I said, there's no way they're going to get enough resources to educate this population the way we can. And so I think as I talk more about that, people are like, oh yeah, I never really thought about that. And they're really amazed. Somebody thought we only had 106 community colleges this weekend. I said, no, there's 116. And then I said, there's 1.9 million students. What? And so it's really interesting how the public really isn't fully aware of really the impact of what's going on here. And so I think this is God's work, and I'm really looking forward to. I think I'm glad I'm joining this board at this time, because I really like innovation and I like new things and sparkly toys. And this sounds like a fun endeavor. This is my Louis Vuitton moment. So I'm good. Thank you.
Well, we're happy to have you. Next, we have Board Member Epstein, then we'll go to Medina, and then we'll go to Board Member Escobar Carrillo.
So I just want to echo what a lot of other people have said. There are a couple of things that I want to point out, though. I think the framing that was brought into this of combining our vision for success into the governor's roadmap was exactly the right way to do it. And I think this document actually does that very well. I love the breadth of issues, everything from climate to AI and everything in between. I think that's really important that we're not missing that. I think the consultation process that was done around this is extraordinary. I mean, it seems like everybody had multiple bites at the apple, and that required a lot of energy that we've seen from our energetic chancellor. And finally, I think the outcome benchmarks are very aggressive, and it's important to set strong goals, and I think this does it. And so I'm very pleased and proud to be part of it.
Board Member Medina.
In my years of being active in shared governance and participatory activities as a community college student, I've never seen an item that's attracted so much excitement among students. And not only student government students or students active with the Student Center for California Community Colleges, but in general, I mean, in the many campuses I've attended, I mean, you hear it, time after time, obviously the fact that this is so student-centered is something to be elated about. I reflect back about a year ago when I was interviewing to be on the board of governors for the California Community Colleges system, and which was what my big why was one of the questions they asked me. So basically I touched on the key highlights, advocating for students from marginalized, underrepresented communities like myself as a student at Compton College and East Los Angeles College, focusing on adult learners, focusing on programs that will affect students, obviously seeking re-entry into California Community College system, foster youth, low-income adults, justice involved, like I mentioned, impacted students, veterans. Little did I know that less than a year later, I would be voting on this item. So it's just a true honor actually to vote this, representing as the only student on this board. But above all, sitting amongst great colleagues that have worked so hard in collaboration with the Chancellor's Office for your phenomenal job in doing this. So on behalf of the 1.9 million community college students, I just want to thank you for everyone's great work on this item.
Thank you, Board Member Escobar Carrillo.
I also want to just add to the praise and the thanks for this document. I mean, one thing I reflect on as I read through it, it really captures a lot of the themes that we've talked about since I've been on the board for the last few years. When you think about Section 2 that talks about particular communities of focus, student populations of focus, And so, I think of the conversations we've had about justice involved and justice impacted students, foster youth, low-income adults, and the dual enrollment and veterans piece. I think that's really great to see that, we got to focus on everyone, but there's some people that need maybe a little bit more extra attention. And that's something that we've always been energized when you've had presentations and people come talk to us about projects that relate to those communities. So it's good to see that in here. I also really appreciate the breadth of the engagement that you all embarked on. You were all over the state. Like you said, you had monthly meetings with the consultation council and gave homework and people came back and people brought feedback and helped you iterate on this document. So I think it really is exciting to be at this stage. I also will say that, our new chancellor, when we were talking to her at the beginning of her process, she had this idea of how she was going to weave all these ideas together based on her own experience and bringing it in and marrying it with the experience that you all have across our, across our office. Chancellor's office. It's great to see all of that coming together in one document that we can all constantly go to if we need the elevator speech or we need something to kind of center and focus us. So I just, want to say thank you for that and bravo, and look forward to moving forward.
Thanks. Next, we have Vice President Aguinaldo.
Thank you very much. I have three things I'd like to add. First is to join the chorus and really state that how excited I am about this vision and this document because of the amount of altitude it covers. It goes from aspirational all the way down to tactical and everywhere in between. And I think that really speaks volumes about all the different stakeholders that have put their mark and their imprint into this document, covering every single possible viewpoint of how this is going to get implemented. So kudos to the team on that. The second thing I'd like to point out is how we are doing this work with joy. And I know that that was a particular area of importance and focus for Dr. Christian, because by golly, does she have an incredibly high standard for excellence. I've seen many of our board members, I've seen many members of the Chancellor's Office staff on calls on Sunday, for goodness sakes. And we do it with joy because we are excited about this work. So thank you to everybody who's been leaning in on this, everyone in the field, and particularly the staff, because you're driving these weekend phone calls. I mean, this is really nights and weekends in addition to day work here. And then the third note is that I appreciate how much of a living document this is and how this could potentially change. And one of the areas that I'd like to just flag for our consideration is understanding to what Board Member Medina was talking about, itemization or calling out of specific non-traditional populations. And and I can't help but notice this space at the bottom of page 5, which might be a good spot to put some words about students with dependent children in accordance with our budget and legislative ask, which we'll cover in the next item. And I don't want to get too excited, but it's a special population that we've been focusing a lot on lately. And kudos to Dr. Rebecca Ruan O'Shaughnessy, who has done enormous work on this piece. There are volumes of initiatives that she is working on that would be a lovely addition to page 5. So thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Brown.
So I'm not excited. I'm just kidding. I am excited. I am excited. And I get excited about some of the most boring things. So system development to remove barriers at scale, those kind of words really excite me because that's the whole reason why I got interested in serving on the board, is getting frustrated working with students one-on-one and seeing the same issue over and over and over again, impacting individual students, that we could just remove that barrier for all of the students. So I really appreciate that focus and just this whole section on the people, the policy, people, systems, and resources. If we don't have those 4 legs of the table underneath this, it's not going to work. So thank you very much for a very thoughtful and proactive vision. And I'm looking forward to implementation. I know we're going to just keep getting better over time. Thank you.
Thanks. I just want to join the chorus of thank yous to the staff. Also, Consultation Council, as part of the agenda item, each of their comments was listed in the Chancellor's Office response. it's a very rich discussion, and they brought up so many great points. And similar to my conversation with the league, it just furthers my understanding that to a T, to a person, everyone in this system is really aligned around doing what's best for our students. So it's just really heartening to see that. And I also want to give a special thank you to our chancellor. She mentioned her first meeting was in July. And so just kind of the trajectory and the speed here is really exceptional. And I want to thank you for your leadership on this. As I mentioned earlier, I do think we're at an inflection point, and I believe that this document really is reflective of that. And it really is a continuation of everything we did in Vision to continue our student-centered journey. And I also am glad to hear that it's a living document, because it gets at the point I made earlier that we are living in a time where we must be nimble. AI, all of these things are just creating a speed of change that none of us have seen in our lifetime. And so to think that we can have something and put it on a shelf and it's going to be relevant in a year, probably not even half a day. And so similar to my vice president, I'm going to put a little breadcrumb, which is, and I'll talk about it in the next item, but I would also like us to consider a clear goal around accessing federal safety net dollars for our students. We simply, we've talked about systems, we've talked about the people. We cannot leave a dollar on the table that could help our students. And it's complex and it's hard work, but we do have some shining examples in our system. Compton and other districts are already working here. The other thing I really like that our chancellor highlighted earlier are these demonstration projects. This is going to work best bidirectionally, which is meaning that we as the board have some thoughts and some goals, but also looking to the field, looking what's happened in our districts and colleges and seeing what's scalable. What are the promising practices that others may be able to adopt in their own home districts? And I think that is a new thing in this vision, and it is going to take all hands on deck to really make it possible. So I appreciate that as well. With that, I am sure we have public comments on this item, and so I call on the public to make their comments.
The public comment period on item 4.5 is now open. We will begin with public comments in Sacramento and then move on to virtual. For virtual attendees, please use the raised hand feature. Press *9 if you are calling in. You will have 2 minutes. I will hand it over to Vice President Aguinaldo to begin with public remarks in Sacramento.
Thank you very much. We have 4 public comments on this item. I'm going to call up the first 2, Wendy Brill-Weinkoop and Larry Galizio.
Thank you. Just in time, I was getting stiff. Good afternoon, President Costa, Vice President Aguinaldo, Chancellor Christian, and the members of the Board of Governors. I'm Wendy Brill-Weinkoop, President of the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges. FAC appreciates having contributed to the collaborative development of Vision 2030, an aspirational roadmap for our system's future. Yet work remains. Further partnerships with all of California's segments of higher education is imperative to fully support transfer students on their journey, as too many still encounter barriers after earning their ADTs. In addition, the Vision's emphasis on removing obstacles for non-traditional and adult learners and expanding baccalaureate access is encouraging, as they make up the majority of our student population. As a living document, Vision 2030 can be responsive and inclusive. However, realizing Vision 2030's ambitious goals will require dramatic new system resources and partnerships. FAC embraces the opportunity for continued involvement in service to our students as this vision takes shape. We are ready to work together. Thank you.
President Costa, Vice President Aguinaldo, State Chancellor Christian, members of the board, Larry Galizio, President of the League. Great to see all of you in person. I have 5 points. I'll never get through them. Can I use the time that you left? First and foremost, I want to thank you, President Costa, for spending time, including a Saturday morning, with the trustees and then the CEO board. It was wonderful discussion. So thank you for doing that. One point I want to make is I think there's real appreciation. Well, I know there is, listening to trustees and CEOs with whom I've spoken, that The Vision 2030 recognizes that while there's an enormous amount of work to do, especially concerning disproportionately impact and underserved populations and other issues of concern, this also recognizes the remarkable work that is taking place throughout the state at our colleges. I mean, California community colleges, there's wonderful work happening every day. And so I just want to make that observation, and it's really appreciated. Wanted to say thank you to the Chancellor and also members, everyone at the Chancellor's office for the inclusiveness and the ongoing development. Trustees, CEOs have had opportunities, the league staff have had opportunities to participate. So that's really important, and we look forward to continuing that. Appreciate that it's a living document and this is an iterative process. It allows for the flexibility and dynamism this point has been made, and that's really important. And so finally, I would say we really urge continued laser focus, because whether it's equitable baccalaureate attainment or workforce and economic development, the future of learning, it'll all be implemented at our districts and colleges. So we look forward to the continued work on Vision 2030.
Thank you very much. The next two speakers are Cheryl Aschenbach and Eric Kalyamagi.
Thank you, President Costa, Vice President Aguinaldo, Chancellor Christian. Want to echo a couple of things that my stakeholder partner leaders just mentioned. Partnership, the work being done at our local colleges. Those are both critical pieces. As I've expressed to faculty through opportunities to communicate about Vision 2030, this has been a unique experience, a unique opportunity to collaborate to set our vision. Previous visions have been set for us as a system, and as faculty who are often engaged in those conversations locally, it hasn't always bode well when we're just being told this is our system's vision, buy in. We can buy in because we've had the conversations and we've seen the iterations. And so much appreciation for the iterations. I will point out 11 versions of a slide deck is really 10+1. And there is teaching and learning and academic and professional matters woven through all of Vision 2030. And so as faculty, know that when we pull together for our plenary session in November, I will be calling on faculty leaders to take advantage of this opportunity to do this work in partnership with their CEOs, the CSSOs, CIOs, students, classified professionals, and their faculty colleagues on their own campuses. But I'll also be expressing that the 10+1 is a responsibility to lead. And so we cannot, and this is true of all of us, but I can only speak for faculty, we cannot sit back and passively wait for someone else to take the torch. We've just been passed the torch as a system, and know that in my communications, it will be, this is work we are going to do, and we're going to do it together. So thank you.
Good afternoon, Chancellor Christian, President Costa, Vice President Aguinaldo, and members of the Board of Governors. I'm Eric Kalyamagi. I'm the president of the Community College Association, which is the affiliate of the California Teachers Association dealing with higher education matters. So 4 months ago, I went ahead and found myself thinking, what's Vision 2030? I mean, that would have been late May, and here we are now in late September rather. I would like to commend Chancellor Christian for involving the Consultation Council. Despite its name, there have been times where the Consultation Council was definitely not consulted in the past. And, you know, in this document, there was considerable consultation. I'm also thankful that Chancellor Christian is working on some demonstration program pilots. You know, not all ideas actually end up working when you try them out. And the idea that we can go ahead and try something on a small scale prior to implementing it is, I think, quite positive. It is, however, a fine line between a living document and a moving target. And I do note that there's a lot of work to be done with implementation. The over 50,000 faculty in the community college system at present know little about how to teach with AI or how to address struggling high school students. Similarly, high school faculty in many cases are not really up
30
on
seconds.
on the rigor or the work required for a college environment. So I want to note that there's going to be much coordination ahead. We talk about our 1.9 million students. Well, the high schools have 2.1 million. We have two big groups that need to go ahead and work together. They need to consult with each other. In some cases, we will need to go ahead and have high school teachers get master's degrees. In other cases, we're going to have to give up on AP and IB programs.
That is time. Thank you.
So in short, many resources needed, and I appreciate the efforts. Thank you.
Do we have any online comments on the item?
We do. We have one hand raised. Melissa Bardo, you have control of your mic and can address the board.
Good afternoon, President Costa, Chancellor Christian, and board members. My name is Melissa Bardo, Associate Director of Policy and Government Relations for the Education Trust West, a research and advocacy organization committee committed to eliminating achievement, equity, and opportunity gaps. First, we want to thank Chancellor Christian, Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez, and the Chancellor's Office for your leadership in shaping a robust vision for the system, as well as your commitment to soliciting feedback from various stakeholders. Overall, we support the direction of the plan and are excited to see alignment with much of our work, especially in the areas of dual enrollment expansion, increasing access to financial aid, increasing support for students with dependent children, and aligning data systems. We recommend prioritizing equitable placement and completion as a system-wide goal through explicit inclusion in the proposed Vision 2030, either as an action or an outcome. As noted on the Vision 2030 website, Vision 2030 will be a framework for bold and thoughtful action, and successful implementation of equitable placement and completion will be a critical component of achieving equity and success, access, and support. Ongoing implementation of equitable placement and completion reforms will ensure that students have access to transfer level math and English and receive the necessary support from colleges to succeed and reach their academic goals. Again, we greatly appreciate that the Chancellor's Office is engaging with advocates and partners to help inform this critical work, and we look forward to being partners in this work with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Costa, there are no other hands raised.
Thank you very much. Well, I know a certain board member Haynes.
Do I need to repeat it?
If you'd like.
I move this item.
Second.
No, presidential prerogative. The student, board member Medina wants to second. All right. So we have Haynes and Medina. Will all those in favor signify by saying aye? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. All right. Next up, we have item 4.5, and we are going to be joined by Executive Vice Chancellor Navarrete and Vice Chancellor O'Brien to discuss the budget and legislative request for 2024-25.
Good afternoon, members of the board, President Costa, Vice President Aguinaldo. Thank you for your support in crafting this item and for approving Vision 2030, which is really the source of inspiration and the driver of our 24-25 system budget and legislative request. For all of you in this item, it is an action item, and we are presenting two components. One, the budgetary requests that we would put forward to the Department of Finance for consideration by the governor. And the second component are the concepts which would drive the legislation that we would either sponsor or support or lead in the next year. And I will let my colleague, Vice Chancellor O'Brien, introduce himself when we get to that component. But first, let's start with, we'll go to the next slide and share a little bit of what we'll walk through. We'll talk about the request framework. And so we are coming off the heels of the approval of Vision 2030 and want to share how we've structured our request, how we are making the case, and the alignment, the clear alignment to Vision 2030 that we'll put forward here. And then we'll walk through some of those components that are included. And I'll turn it over to Vice Chancellor O'Brien. So next slide, please. So the request is intentionally aligned to the 3 strategic directions. So everything that we are seeking for funding or resources supports equitable baccalaureate degree attainment, equitable workforce and economic development, and the future of learning. We are doing so as our strategy to both advance the workforce arm and strength of the system, but also to ultimately help communities, students of color out of poverty, and leverage the skills and expertise that is available on our campuses through faculty, staff, and the administrative leaders. So next slide, please. So our theme for this year in alignment with Vision 2030 is advancing access, success with equity for all Californians. That is what we're seeking. That is what our advocacy message will be as we engage next year. Next slide, please. And so under our components of equitable baccalaureate degree attainment, one of our first asks is recognizing that we need the fundamental resources and operational dollars for our colleges. So we're seeking resources for the cost of living adjustment. We know that resources will likely be very tight for the budget for the state of California, but nonetheless, that cost of living adjustment and those rate increases, those per student funding rate increases that support both enrollment, they support a district's ability to target and reach out to low-income students and communities, and then to lead them to the success, the very reason our students are come through our doors. So our request is $500 million ongoing resources. And as President Aschenbach mentioned, our faculty are critical to this work. And so we are seeking robust faculty supports, but very specific elements that we are also wanted to highlight in this year's request, which is opportunity for our faculty to focus and develop a curricular mapping, particularly as we look at another request that you'll see in there, which is credit for prior learning, right? In order to map and identify the types of skills that you get in an apprenticeship program or and what course they might align with, it takes hard work by a faculty member aligning those. So we want to provide time for that. And then professional development as we advance technology and workforce, generative AI, helping faculty continue to grow their skills and expertise in these areas will be important. So 500 million ongoing in that area. You may have also seen in your various updates that Vice Chancellor Rebecca Ruana-Shaughnessy, including a representative task force around the state. They've worked very hard to update the Disabled Student Services Program funding formula. Traditionally, that funding formula had a 95% base, and any new programs or expansion of these programs only had 5% resources to actually grow. That meant that there are learning abilities that we are not adequately serving across the state. So that transition to a new formula for DSPS is important, and we want to be able to fully fund it by the time it's fully operationalized. So our request is 60 million ongoing. Next slide, please. Under the strategic direction of equitable workforce and economic development, there are some that I am very, very excited about, and I hope that you will be too. The first is supporting students with dependent children. And this is an area that you may have seen as part of last year's system budget request. We were looking for Child Development Center expansion. And what we've done this year is really learn from district practices. We have some districts that are doing exceptional work by bringing in the community to their campuses to be their partners, recognizing that managing a child development center alone is very costly, especially given the complex structure of child development center funding. And so many of them are bringing on Boys and Girls Club, YMCA, or other nonprofits that have expertise in this area. So this is a two-part, essentially a competitive grant for districts to either expand capacity at their existing child development centers or to incentivize partnerships for after school and non-traditional hours care for students. And we're learning again from campuses that have taken the bold step to do this, and they did it with their federal stimulus dollars. We want to encourage more of that because it is the way that we will bring back our working learners, our adult learners, and students with dependent children. The other one we're very excited is credit for prior learning mapping, the mapping platform expansion. There is a current platform that exists called MAP. It's a mapping articulation pathways. It's a new name. It started as military articulation platform and how it has expanded, recognizing that this is a powerful vehicle and a tool to bring together not just military service, but other areas of workforce and labor that have defined skills that we can map to existing courses that we offer. There are currently 55 colleges that are part of this program. We want all of them to be part of this effort. With a $6 million investment from the state, now I'm starting to sound like an infomercial. With only $6 million, you can get all colleges there. I heard myself, sorry. And then last but not least in this important effort is to continue the work around apprenticeship initiative expansion. The governor has been has led boldly in this area and has increased apprenticeship program funding. We want to see more colleges lead in this area. And so we're building on the existing program and seeking additional resources to continue to bring on more colleges and expand the apprenticeships that they offer. Next slide, please. And then the last strategic direction here is the largest request that we have in this year's funding proposal or funding ask, which is the first phase of the Common Data Cloud, formerly known as, or known to many as by its working title of the Common ERP. But really, at its core, it's the ability to share data broadly amongst colleges. And it's an initial phase. We're really looking at a platform or vendor agnostic strategy, just building the infrastructure to allow all colleges, data networks, administrative resources to communicate with themselves and to communicate with us, so that when you ask us questions like, what does enrollment look like? I'm not telling you, let me tell you in 2024 what enrollment is looking like in 2023. So that when we are thinking about taking action or serving students at a faster pace, more immediately to truly address their needs when they have them, that we can do that here. So the request would fund the first 3 years of phase one. Phase one is $310 million one time and a request for $24.9 million ongoing. That is what we are asking for this year. I've included here before you our multi-year request, which is that in 2027, we want to come back and ask for phase two of this funding to finish out the project and effort. And then that is a $214 million one-time ask. And then obviously that continued $24.9 million ongoing. So let's go to the next slide. Let me tell you a little bit more about what a Common Data Cloud system brings, the benefits, why it's necessary, why it aligns with our effort of future learning and really being responsive as a system to the changes that we are seeing now and we can expect in the future. The current technology that we have often inhibits our systems to communicate with each other amongst colleges, amongst regional collaborators, but with the system office as well. We also know that we have faced many security vulnerabilities because of the age of our system and the fact that when we do see vulnerabilities, we can't act cohesively to address them and identify those core strategies. So a common data cloud would allow enhanced information security. It would provide real-time action and data to be responsive to the core areas that are part of a data system, which include your human resources, your data, your student data and information systems, your financial aid systems, and potentially your funding systems as well. And so those would work together, again, to understand where we can leverage both capacity and operational costs. The third piece that I want to highlight is our ability to standardize how we both collect information and, again, communicate with each other. That is very key in an era of technology-driven platforms and learning resources. When a student goes to multiple campuses and they have to engage with multiple different platforms and services, that becomes a barrier, especially for those that are newly enrolled, are post-traditional, or are just busy. Having to learn a new system adds a complexity that we know we can address. And so we hope that you'll be as excited about this as well and its potential, both in addressing security issues, creating more seamless services for our students, but also our ability to adapt to the future of learning. So let me go to the next slide and share briefly some of the multi-year investments. Next slide. As you recall, we have structured now our systems requests to be forward-thinking. So when we are including items in there that we want to be considered in the future, so that when legislators, the Department of Finance, the governor are looking at what should they be investing next year or the year after, we've provided a list of concepts and proposals for them to think about, for us to socialize with our colleagues, with our state leaders and others. And those include for this proposal is effective financial aid support services. Again, those could be aided with the Common ERP, the Common Cloud initiative, intersegmental transfer, success collaboration. This would be resources to support our faculty and our academic senate in year 3 of an initiative where we've identified for the first 2 years of funding. We know that that work will not wrap up in 2 years. So we're thinking ahead on how we continue that work. And when the 23 Budget Act was included, the governor included resources or included a statement there on the K-12 side that said, in the future, when funds are available, we will explore restoring any funds that were taken back from K-12. And so we want to include that there. As you recall, community colleges had to take back or give back $500 million in deferred maintenance and instructional equipment dollars. The instructional equipment dollars alone fund many of the career technical education programs on your campuses. So restoring those dollars in the future will be essential to keeping the strength of our workforce programs. And then Chancellor's Office general operations capacity to ensure that we can move forward many of these important initiatives. With that, let me turn to the next slide, and I will just show you a brief summary. This is included in your packet. It shows you if you need to see all of them in a table with the cost, those that are ongoing, one-time, non-98, and Prop 98. This is helpful, at least I love tables, so that's mostly why this is here. Next slide, please. Lastly, let me share some of the next steps on the budget component before I turn it over to Vice Chancellor O'Brien. We're presenting this to you for your consideration. Next, we will work with our state stakeholders, local districts, partners, to really build support broadly across the system for this request and begin sending letters and be proactive in that effort. And then the governor releases the budget proposal in January. So with that, let me turn it to Vice Chancellor O'Brien.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, board members and Chancellor. Vice Chancellor David O'Brien, Government Relations, and I'm presenting the legislative component of the 2024-25 system request. As Executive Vice Chancellor Navarrete noted, the legislative proposals run on a slightly different timeline. These are not submitted along with our budget change proposals to Department of Finance at the same time. These are more sort of laying out some early priorities in areas where the board and the Chancellor's office want to focus. And I want to just point out that as with the budget request, our legislative proposals are really intentionally very focused. We're aware of the likely fiscal situation the state looks like will be in again next year. And so when we crafted these in consultation with our partners in the field on Consultation Council and here at the Chancellor's office, we really focused on legislative concepts that, one, first and foremost, advance Vision 2130. You'll see a lot of linkage to Vision 2130 here. Two, sorry. Oh, 20, did I say 2130 again? I keep doing that. And our time is now, our time is not 107 years from now. So thank you for correcting me. If anybody hears me do that, my goodness. Vision 2030. All right. That's okay. Not planning on being around in 2130. Focused on Vision 2030, as well as unfulfilled priorities from prior years that the board has made a major priority, including a big one you'll recognize at the end. And then finally, flexibility for the system office and the field to really implement some of these new and existing laws and programs with fidelity. And you'll see what I mean in a moment on the next slide. I want to point out one thing. For purposes of these slides, these titles are just some themes that we've come up with that lump the legislative proposals together. These are not intended to conflict with or distract from in any way the Vision 2030 themes, goals, or metrics. So these are just organizing for purposes of this PowerPoint. So when we talk about equitable access to academic and career pathways, we've identified three major legislative priorities here. The first one, as Dr. Lowe discussed earlier and President Costa referenced, has to do with dual enrollment, right? So the board's taking action on barriers and regulations around dual enrollment that really serve to keep students, and perhaps disproportionately students who would benefit from dual enrollment the most, from being able to access those pathways. Well, we've also identified that there are statutory barriers. Some of these were identified in a report the Chancellor's Office issued on CCAP, the College and Career Access Pathways Program, a couple of years ago. But Dr. Lowe and her team are currently working on others. We don't have this one fleshed out in terms of details yet, but we know what we'd like to be able to do in conjunction with our stakeholders, including students, is go to the legislature next year and say, you know, you agree, the governor agrees, and certainly through our new chancellor's vision and the board's vision, we agree that we need to remove these arbitrary barriers that in many cases just reinforce issues of personal or implicit bias and keep students from accessing dual enrollment. One common example that gets thrown around is the requirement for the high school principal to sign off, you know, at each term the student is enrolled in dual enrollment. Another piece that we're advancing has to do with the use of what's called multi-criteria screening. I see Board Member Grande nodding at that one, right? That's a very critical tool that a lot of our nursing programs have utilized in recent years to ensure that they can manage enrollment in a way that equitably serves underserved student populations. You may recall, if you have been in the system for a while, that it came out in response to some lawsuits and concerns filed by civil rights organizations around the previous admission systems for nursing and other programs. Well, that multi-criteria screening authorization has a sunset date coming up of January 1st, 2025. The Chancellor's Office has historically sponsored legislation to continue extending out that sunset date. I think we're at the point now where we've seen the evidence shows that it's effective, and we'd like to request that the sunset date be repealed entirely, as well as look at whether other programs in allied health should have that similar authorization to use multi-criteria screening. Last but not least, under this theme, common course numbering. I know the board's due to get an update soon from Dr. Lowe and her team on the implementation of that 2021 legislation, AB 1111, requiring a system of common course numbering for all of our courses system-wide. Well, I don't want to steal too much of Dr. Lowe's thunder, but across our 116 colleges, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 500,000 individual course sections. No, that's not an exaggeration or a typo or an extra zero, 500,000. And so the original legislation actually has an implementation deadline of July 1st, 2024. I think we knew at the time that was pretty unrealistic, but we wanted to make some progress, and we got support from the administration and the legislature to fund this working group that Dr. Lowe leads. However, we do need to go to the legislature and ask for an extended implementation date. We're looking at 2027 under this request. Next slide, please. You may have heard in prior updates, I believe some board members have highlighted this issue. The Chancellor's Office is currently responsible for producing somewhere around 50 annual or semi-annual reports to the legislature. And each one is a process unto itself that involves not just data collection, but data analysis, policy recommendations, a little bit of design work, et cetera. And in the process of looking at how can we start to alleviate this burden here at the Chancellor's Office and allow our leaders here to focus on, administering and overseeing the programs, less so on just reporting out on the programs, we noticed that a lot of our legislative reports fall under very similar, if not identical, themes or issues. So here, for instance, we have 4 different legislative reports that relate to basic needs services or programs. We have 3 on housing and housing insecurity, 3 on nursing programs, a couple on workforce and career education, and others. And so what we'd like to do is ultimately, we would, of course, like to submit a request to the legislature to actually remove some legislative reports that we feel are no longer of use or are obsolete from the code, but at bare minimum, allow us to consolidate some of the ones with similar or identical themes into fewer. So here we've identified 16 legislative reports that we can consolidate into 5. The data and information would be the same. The legislature stakeholders will all be getting the same information about our programs, no change there. It's just that the reporting dates would be aligned and they could be packaged into a single report, which would save a little bit of time and create some efficiencies here on our end. Next slide, please. 2 more proposals to highlight around the issue of affordability and historically underserved student groups. The first relates, it actually thematically relates to the DSPS proposal in our budget request. But one thing that's come up from the field a lot recently has to do with students with disabilities accessing financial aid. So if you're familiar with DSPS, Disability Services and Programs for Students, you may be aware that a majority of students receiving DSPS can receive what's called a full-time accommodation, where it's determined that because of a disability they have, they're not actually able to attend the statutory definition of full-time, which is 12 units or more. However, for purposes of campus-based programs and services, they can be otherwise treated as a full-time student because they're not able to attend full-time. There is one major financial aid program that benefits a lot of our full-time students that I know the board's heard about, which is the Student Success Completion Grant. This is a program that's kind of an add-on to the Cal Grant that is only available for students taking 12 units or more. What we'd like to do is pursue legislation to say that if a student is receiving DSPS services and they have a full-time accommodation indicating that they cannot actually take 12 units or more due to a disability, they can nonetheless be considered full-time for purposes of this one financial aid grant. It would benefit a lot of those students who realistically are not going to get to that 12 units and provide them that additional aid towards their cost of attendance that would help them succeed and graduate on time. Lastly here, you've heard some of my legislative updates over the years. A lot of legislation in recent years related to residency and classifying various exemptions from students having to pay non-resident tuition. There are at least 35 different exemptions we've identified in the statute to non-resident tuition. We'd like to propose a multi-year study looking at whether or not these can be streamlined to make the process more transparent and understandable for students, not taking away the exemptions or any of the ways that this does serve students in any way, but simply making it so that you don't have to be a legal expert and know all of those 35 exemptions if you're, say, a campus practitioner working with a student who may qualify for one. Next slide, please. Last but not least, this is one that we've presented to this board many, many times, a longtime priority of the board, the chancellor's office, and most importantly, our students, has to do with the Cal Grant Equity Framework. So the last update you may have heard or received from us is that the legislature did pass legislation creating this new streamlined Cal Grant program that would be an entitlement for all community college students for the first time ever and eliminate those arbitrary rationing mechanisms and barriers. However, and this is critical, this is why we present this as a budget and legislative request, that has not yet been funded. So the framework is in statute, but next year in the budget, we're calling on the legislature and governor to ensure that the Cal Grant Equity Framework is fully funded. We're just highlighting here our partners at the league recently worked with Real College to put together a basic needs survey surveying thousands and thousands of students. And the results really affirm so much of what we've known for many years. 1 in 3 students are skipping meals. About half the students are worried about food running out. 60% are housing insecure. And as many as 1 in 4 may meet one or more definitions of what it means to be homeless. And so we know that financial aid is a critical equity lever for students in these areas and a critical component of Vision 2030 as well. That concludes the legislative component. We're happy to take any questions.
Board Member Legrand.
Thank you for the presentation. Since this is my first time going through your budget kind of process, I just had some maybe fundamental questions for me to try to understand. So I'm trying to from contextual standpoint, when you send through a request, is there just an understanding that we've analyzed this and made cuts so they don't think we're just coming forward with money? Because I know a lot of times.
Should I respond to this as former Department of Finance staff? No, they are going to ask them to justify every expenditure request that we have made. And so that's why often Lizette will reach out to the field to make sure that previous expenditures have actually been expended. And they will request data from the chancellor's office of every element, including even the IT program that you mentioned, kind of where did we come up with those estimates for those contracts. It's a very thorough process.
Okay.
Darius said meanie, but.
So my question was really also around. Okay. So the other part was just, I was just trying to understand from I think presenting that what we're actually asking for actually has savings on the other end of it, because part of what we're doing is making it more efficient for students to get through the process, which in essence costs less money to educate them if we can get them through. So some of the things that I'm seeing there, I guess I was reading through it, just trying to get context in my head. As a layperson, I'd be looking at this, and as a former vice chancellor, I'm looking at it thinking, okay, so where have you cut? What have you trimmed? What are you doing differently? I'm just not going to be able to give you more money. I just need to understand that you have some skin in the game. So I was just kind of get understanding for that, but that's actually, Amy, very helpful. Good luck.
They're very good. With that, I have Board Member Grande and then Board Member Rawlings, followed by Board Member Haynes and Brown.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation, particularly with the legislative report out of our intention to deal with this multi-criteria screening factor sunset. It was something that we had discussed in the baccalaureate pilot programs, and many of our pilot programs instituted something very similar to what was already in the statute. So I hope that we do not restrict this as we begin to lobby in all efforts for the legislature to consider expanding it, that we don't limit it to healthcare programs, and we do take into consideration the number of our career technical education programs that have programmatic accreditation that has additional screening criteria for applicants and students enrolling in those programs. So if there's anything I can do to help in this regard, this is one particular area. You reach out, my full-fledged lobbying support to see if we can make this happen. Thank you so much.
So thank you for this work. I just wanted to call out a couple things for my board member colleagues here. There's a discussion that we're going to have tomorrow, a little bit more on the common ERP and the data platform. I think the work that went into this in this budget request is great. Starting on page 8, just a plug for you all. If you haven't read it, take time, read the budget request starting on page 8. But I think also it's the work around equitable workforce and the supports we're providing there, the discussions around apprenticeships, how we can enable that for folks is fantastic. And I love, and I don't know we've done a structure quite like this before. Some parts of it seem a little newer, where when we're combining the request, we're including the multi-year outlook. I think that's super helpful for us as well. But I'm very excited, particularly about the future of learning components of this. And I'm looking forward to the discussion tomorrow.
Board Member Haynes.
So forgive me with this particular question, because anyway, just forgive me. Just forgive me. So with vision, with our initial vision for success, while it was broad, it was also very narrow in some respects in comparison to this particular vision, which is expansive in many respects, or at least expansive in terms of the kinds of things we want to do. I think we've been very specific about some of those areas in terms of AI, climate, and it is, if anything, very workforce driven, because we've not only braided vision for success, we've braided this particular Vision 2030 as well as the governor's area, and the governor's been very clear about this workforce piece. So it is imprinted all over this our document, and so I am a visual learner. I'm an auditory learner, and then I have to write things down. And so as I think about this and its presentation across the street, what we did for Vision for Success was to look at the budget and then compartmentalize it based on the actual vision and explain and argue and advocate for that based on the vision. But it was it's a smaller footprint, somewhat of a smaller footprint. This is a lot more expensive. Okay, so as a person, I like that process because it was a one way of organizing and then arguing for it, advocating for it. Do we have to do away with that because of the expansiveness? Or are there some categories like workforce? Are there some categories around dual enrollment, or that it can be that it's easy to maybe just for me, but I think for others to understand through the budget and through the strategy why we're asking for these things?
Christian calls level 3, right? So what we're seeing, the reason we intentionally aligned these requests under the strategic directions is really so that we can have the conversation with the governor and legislature about the resourcing component of some of the actions that will get us to focus on that strategic direction and ultimately get us to those 3 core goals. And so when we talk about it, we're really thinking about having, for example, the ability to map credit for prior learning. I'll use that one as my example. Enables us to then have a more equitable workforce, one where we are giving credit where credit is due, but then we are resourcing it through this request. And the evidence and the why is what you see as part of Vision 2030. And then our deeper work are the data, the details, the prior expenditures that Board President Costa and Board Member LeGrand highlighted is here's what you've invested in that effort in the past. Here's what we've gotten, and here's what it would get us to your investment would get both in savings, cost savings to students, cost saving to general taxpayers, and just overall socioeconomic mobility for individuals. So that's really how we individually will position these requests in conversations, but also in the more expansive BCPs as well, the budget change proposals.
So if I can have a bit of a follow-up. So I am a supporter and an advocate, but I'm also a realist and a pragmatic person. And I'm also an African descendant woman in California. And so I'm a skeptic in this process. And so if we are not clear around that equity piece in all of these things with a racial as well as an economic lens, this is my fear. At the end of 2030, we will not have moved who we're attempting to service relative to California, and those BIPOC, Black and Indigenous folks, will still be at the bottom, or that because we went. God bless us all, and we can blame COVID. We can do all of those things, but those attainment gaps, they are still gaps. And if we're not laser focused with data, and the we is an inclusive we, because this is a system issue. This does not just sit with the Board of Governors. That's actually the implementation of this sits with our colleges in the district. And so I want to say that up front, because I don't want there to be any illusion where we're trying to go and who we're trying to serve relative to the Californians who are having the most difficult challenges based on economy, based on ethnicity and race.
Absolutely agree.
Thank you. Next, we have Board Member Brown, followed by Board Member Epstein.
Thank you for these priorities. They're very much in alignment with the vision. I have a very granular request for the map, because you said it's being expanded, not just for military, but out to other classes. If you could please consult with the articulation officers, because I know there's another system that they use called TESS through College Source. I think it's primarily used for courses, and I think what you're describing, MAP, would be used more for CPL, but just to make sure that there's not redundancy, and also to see if there's any opportunity for one system to talk to the other. Thank you.
That's great. That's a great suggestion.
I just have a really quick question. I know in some of the past budgets, we were, especially during COVID, we were given a little extra money for online instruction. I can't remember, was that one time or is that continuous, and has that gone away?
Great question. So those dollars were one time, but they had a 5-year allowable period. So districts are entering in 2024, they'll be entering their 3rd year of their allowable use of those dollars. And one of the reasons why we also asked for deferred maintenance and instructional equipment restoration in the future is that in the 23 Budget Act, the enrollment retention funds that also support online learning, the response block grant, and the instructional equipment were all block granted so that a district can make a local decision based on their data and needs on how to utilize those. So a district may have greater needs in online learning or in in enrollment and engagement, and apply those funds to those purposes. And so that flexibility is again provided for a period of an extended period.
Thanks. And are we monitoring like what the colleges are doing with the money? I mean, I'm curious, just systematically, like if the CVC, OEI, program is being expanded using those funds, and just what's the measurement of how it's being used?
There are a couple of ways that we are getting a better understanding of how districts are applying those funds. One, MIS already has a data element that allows us to see student success by the type of modality. So we've been able to see, and the legislature has requested information about learning by modality. They've seen the increases in those. The other one that we were very excited that'll give us a greater insight, because we don't have a lot of student level data at the system level, is this online education study that the governor and legislature funded for $500,000 in the 23 Budget Act. That'll give us a better understanding of the types of strategies that are really working. And then we intend to use that to learn more, to elevate practices that are really worth exploring system-wide. And again, by the time we're done with the study, we'll also have more components, again, that tell us how other technology innovations are shaping the classroom. So I want to highlight both of those because I think they'll work hand in hand, but we don't have a lot more data beyond that, being quite honest.
I, of course, have questions on the budget and the legislative stuff. On the legislative stuff, just thank you for the dual enrollment. I really appreciate that. And I think there may be other things you uncover in that that we want to address in statute. On the budget items, I have a couple, so bear with me. One is kind of a technical question, and the other one is something that came out of my conversation with the league, with both the trustees and the CEOs. I will fully admit, when we talk about clouds and lakes, I'm confused. I don't really know. That's not my core competency, but yeah, Bill probably knows. I noticed in the presentation that I think the ERP proposal is in 98 funds, and I'm wondering how that works, if it's a statewide solution. So just techie question there. And then secondly, I think the issue that came up was a concern that districts, how does this fit into what ERP systems districts have? And how do we sort of envision that going forward?
Yeah. Both valid questions, and I think important points to keep in mind as to why this, when you see this proposal, it's in 2 phases over a 7-year period of implementation. So that's one key consideration. So currently, districts are investing their own local dollars that flow through Prop 98 for their own ERP systems. Some are homegrown, about 8 of them. 8 of our districts have their own that they've developed, and the others use existing platforms. And so the work that this effort funded would do is allow the exploration of how this would roll out, and how you connect data across these districts. Do they need the same vendor, or can they keep their same vendor and have similarly, the term of a data lake is new to me as well. And so now we're hanging out in lakes with clouds. That sounds fantastic. So whether they can be, again, a vendor agnostic and just have similar coding so that they can communicate with each other. All of those pieces are elements that need to be considered in that first phase, right? The second phase would then have that decision point. The other piece is that it's also thinking about what's the scale. Are we aligning just the student data information systems, or are we going as robust to aligning financial aid platforms as well? Some alignment, the way you can think about it is districts in the future. It does take many years to see this come to fruition, but there are potential cost savings by having similar platforms, right? And leveraging the system's economy of scale. So again, that's mostly, why it's split up into two phases. The first one is really determining, do we need to, how would this look like for a system as large as us? I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify because I think there's confusion in the field. So we're still in the exploratory phases. And I think we still need to go out and see what's in market, and interoperability with district systems is one component, but we haven't decided yet. So I definitely think as we have those conversations with the field, it'll be important for people to understand that, because I think they see statewide and immediately think it's us, like, you must do this. And I think, we're just not at that juncture quite yet based on what you've said. The other question I have that I mentioned earlier is, and I don't even know particularly what the funding request might be, but I am very interested in Compton and what some of our districts are doing as far as safety net programs. And so I'd really like to dig in with some of those districts to understand what financial resources they needed to do that. And if indeed they used philanthropic dollars, what would a state investment in that look like, and how could we scale that up system wide? And so that's something that I'd like us to explore in our budget request, so that we can just bring more of those federal dollars to our districts and ultimately our students.
Yeah, I can highlight two key things. So, they're doing phenomenal work in that county partnership with Compton. We do have another district that has a similar partnership. It's Contra Costa, and they're leveraging a bill that right now I'm drawing a blank on the number that was enacted.
The county liaison, but there was no funding provided for it.
There's one more that essentially encourages counties to share data. It's not an education bill, but it's a general government bill. They leverage that legislation to create those MOUs. So we're very interested in helping determine how we can do that with that existing vehicle, and then seeing what else is needed. I think both of those districts, particularly Compton, has really set an exceptional example of that work. The other is the CalFresh dollars now, or the food pantry dollars that are provided ongoing to districts, now has a reporting element that they want to know how many colleges have a partnership with their county. So we are very interested in helping broker those relationships. Counties, as you know very well, are like us. They don't have a shared infrastructure. We can't just go to, the county CSAC and say we want an MOU there, and it functions legally and has that same teeth across all counties. But we know that we can start there to broker partnerships for more of our districts. So it is something we're very interested in. I'm glad that's something that you'll partner with us as well.
Great, thank you. With that, I think it's time to turn it over to any public comment on the item.
The public comment period on item 4.6 is now open. We will begin with public comments in Sacramento and then move on to virtual comments. For virtual attendees, please use the raised hand feature. Press *9 if you are calling in. You will have 2 minutes. I will hand it over to Vice President Aguinaldo to begin with public remarks in Sacramento.
Thank you very much. We have 2 public comments on this item. The first from Wendy Brill-Weinkoop and the second from Cheryl Aschenbach.
It's a long day, right? Let's see, I'll skip this part. So hi, Wendy Brill-Weinkoop, President of the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges. FAC looks forward to collaboration in many areas where our priorities align. And I'll go off script to just note with the student housing, that was really a joint system partners collaborative effort to fix that money, and it works. So when we work together, it works for our students. For example, we support extending the deadlines for implementing AB 1111 Common Course numbering. Given the scale and the complexity of aligning course numbers, objectives, and content across the entire community college system, an extension would allow for more thoughtful implementation. We also support expanding access to financial aid for students with disabilities, an important equity issue that can make education more affordable for all students. Eliminating unnecessary structural barriers to residency that prevent students from accessing in-state tuition and another worthwhile area to examine, as many policies limit access should be carefully reviewed. In addition, maintaining or increasing per student funding makes good sense, given the role that community colleges play in workforce training and affordable higher education option to these diverse populations. Adequate funding is key to serving students well. Overall, FAC is committed to advancing policies that promote equity, access, and success for our community college students. We appreciate the opportunity to share these priorities in public comment today.
President Costa, Vice President Aguinaldo, Chancellor Christian, members of the board. I didn't introduce myself earlier. Cheryl Aschenbach, President of the Academic Senate, California Community Colleges, in case you didn't know. I want to thank you for two pieces in here particular and look forward to having your support. One is the piece of the multi-year request for Intersegmental Transfer Success Collaborative. Obviously, it has always been an interest of ours, and the Academic Senate's been working with our UC and CSU partners in the Transfer Alignment Project the last few years, but we can't take that further until we have more in-depth conversation within disciplines with faculty from all three segments. And I thank the Chancellor's Office for helping to identify some funds to get that effort rolling in this next year. But it is an effort that if we're going to really look at all the pathways that the transfer model curricula lead to ADTs, as well as the UC transfer pathways, we need a little bit more time to really dive into many disciplines, not just a chosen few. And so thank you for that request for 1 million one time. I'll also say for the legislative request, thank you for the support for extending the Common Course numbering initiative implementation. I think as a member of that task force, we have commented repeatedly that if we are going to implement this, we have to do it right and we cannot rush it. To rush it could potentially make things worse for students, and that's the last thing we want to do. And so to spend time to be intentional, which we've been doing over the last year in our conversations in the task force, as well as to pull in more stakeholders in the implementation phase starting as soon as January, will be critical in really driving this work. Both at the statewide level and then ultimately at the local level. And to give us a little bit more time to do that. The field is relieved because they've been panicked about the 2024 date. And assuming we have that support, 2027 feels much more doable. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any online public comments?
Yes, we have one hand raised. Josh Franco, you have control of your mic and can address the board.
Now that my child's asleep, I wanted to leave a comment here. So I was a student back in 2003, 2005 at Cerritos Community College when, as most of you remember, we began the march towards a Great Recession. And then I was there working for Lieutenant Governor Garamendi in the state capitol from 2007 to 2009 when we saw the beginning of massive budget cuts across every system, but particularly higher education. So I just wanted to bring you back to that time because I read that the LEO put out a report saying that the deficit's looking to be $10 billion in this upcoming fiscal year. And honestly, I think we need to have a stronger posture as a system. Now being a full-time faculty, tenured at Cuyamaca Community College, working with students. When I asked them, how many are working? When I was a student, it was like a quarter of the class. You have them raise their hand now, everyone's raising their hand. When you ask them what are some of the challenges they're facing, I don't have a laptop. I don't have transportation. These are all the things you guys already know. So all I'm suggesting here is double it. Whatever you're asking for, ask for more because we're serving everybody. I don't get the cream of the crop. I get the best of the crop, and that's all of it, right? These are amazing, wonderful students, and the bit of resources we can give them makes a tremendous difference in their lives. Having been one of those students, knowing what it means to have that kind of support. So I'd say increase your posture because when we come back and say, oh, there's a deficit, we shouldn't be self-cutting. We shouldn't be negotiating with ourselves. We should have a very strong position. Thank you. We should have a very strong position as a system because the air cover you provide to us on the ground, doing the work, working with our students makes all the difference in the world. So I appreciate your guys' efforts. And I would say ask for more because we'll never get enough, but at least we're asking. Thank you.
There are no other hands raised.
Okay, with that, I would entertain a motion and a second on the item.
I'll move to approve.
All right, with that, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? The motion carries. Now I have to get my readers on for item 5.1. So we have the nomination of our 2024 board officers. Under the board's procedures, the nomination and election of board officers proceeds in 2 steps. The nomination process begins today, the next to last meeting in the calendar year. The election of board officers is conducted at the last regular meeting of the calendar year, which will be in November. Nominations for president and vice president are received when the president solicits nominations from members of the board. Additional nominations may be made in writing to the chancellor's office at any time prior to the election. Nominations do not require a second. The president and vice president who are elected will take office as the last order of business at the November meeting. They serve 1-year terms and may be elected for no more than 2 consecutive terms. In light of the board procedures allowing nominations up to the time of the election and to ensure a fair process for all nominees, I would like to suggest that all comments in support of a particular nominee be held until our November meeting, when we will know for sure and be allowed time for discussion prior to the vote. Accordingly, I would like to request members of the board provide to me any verbal nominations they wish to make at this time. I am going to take a presidential prerogative here. And I would like to put forward the nomination of Hildy Aguinaldo as our vice president. There's a book called I Don't Know How She Does It. It could be named after Hildy. Okay, with that, the floor is open for other nominations that I'll entertain at this time. Board Member Perry.
I would like to nominate our esteemed president for a second term. I don't know how she does it either, but you've all seen the breadth and depth of her knowledge from community college to legislative. I know she represented us perfectly when she went to Washington, D.C. She has her eyes on the prize, thinking about the safety net of the, I mean, Amy does it all, and she does it all quickly and expediently and thoughtfully, and she gets us all moving and moving in one voice. So, and as she said earlier, am I breaking the rules here by talking why I'm supporting your nomination? I'll
allow it because it's about
I'm
me.
taking the nomination of the president's prerogative. And as she said earlier, we're at an inflection point. So I can't think of a better person to lead us through that. And then there's the red glasses. So seriously.
The Fowler glasses. Thank you. Are there any other? All right, great. Okay, seeing no others, as I said before, nominations can also be submitted to the chancellor up until our next meeting in November. Okay, with that, we will, do I need to take public comment? I don't think I do, Mark.
President Costa, there are no hands raised for public comment.
Okay, great. So I don't need to. Next up, we move into information and reports, and we have item 6.1 with Executive Vice Chancellor Lowe. This is the Equitable Baccalaureate Degree Attainment. She's going to have a co-presenter with Jenny May, and we'll be discussing an update on AB 928 and AB 1111 implementation.
All right, Board of Governors, we are probably standing between you and dinner or happy hour or something else. So we will get right to the point. If we can pull up the slides, want to bring before you updates on 2 key items related to our strategic direction of equitable baccalaureate degree attainment. That is AB 928 and AB 1111. Next slide, please. So aligned here to the wonderful Vision 2030 that you all ratified today. Thank you for that. You'll see here our goals and strategic direction here, equitable baccalaureate degree attainment, and those 2 important elements of that work. Transfer, where we are really focused on a system, on delivering guided pathways with maximized credit mobility for students, as well as baccalaureate degrees, and the opportunity to provide bachelor's degrees in high wage, in demand jobs. And you heard so much of that throughout the Vision 2030 presentation, and much more within the document as it relates to some of our demonstration projects. Next slide here. So why talk about this and why do this work? We talked about this generally at the last meeting in July. As a reminder, we focused in that meeting on dual admission, and you actually heard from representatives from CSU and UC on the dual admissions programs, which are underway. Today, we're continuing this conversation. Is a very important focus on credit mobility, which is so essential to the success of our students and our systems. As our students do their job, come to class, do the work, and earn the credits, those credits must follow them seamlessly across our colleges as well as across our intersegmental partners, our four-year partners. And that credit mobility is essential to so many of our Vision 2030 goals, the reducing of unit accumulation, the increase of transfer, and ultimately increasing that degree and credential attainment, which is then connected to our overarching goals in Vision 2030 of closing equity gaps and improving those workforce outcomes. So these two efforts are really essential. We're bringing this before you, Board of Governors, because we want to make sure you're fully aware of what's moving forward, that you can be excited about the connections to the Vision 2030 work, as much of this is culminating in some important actions towards the end of this year. So for Common Course numbering, we are talking about that seamless and streamlined transfers of credits within our system across community colleges. As we shared last month, upwards of 45% of community college students attend more than one college. So us having Common Course numbering is an equity strategy to help our students to succeed. And then also across segments with the work of AB 928, having that seamless and streamlined transference of credits across our four-year partners. Next slide, please. So looking first at Common Course numbering, when we think about Common Course numbering, sometimes there's a misperception that this is a simplistic task. You create a numbering structure and you tack it around your courses. This is really the task of aligning curriculum. And you'll hear more, and Jenny May will share more about the work of the task force, thinking through that very carefully and coming up with a plan of action for how we will do that in a streamlined way. But this is the goal. This is actually from Education Code that established this process with AB 1111, that the goal is to maximize credit mobility, and the goal is to ultimately have a positive impact on transfer so that we see greater transfer and greater equity in transfer. And so as we are implementing, we're implementing with those goals in mind, that that's what we need to get to. So could we just slap some sort of numbering structure over courses? We could. But we don't think that's to the best advantage of our students or our system. This is actually an opportunity that we want to leverage for these larger goals. And you'll hear more about how we're working towards that. Next slide. You've seen this timeline before, here updated, as you just heard from our Vice Chancellor, David O'Brien, about our request for an extension of the timeline. Because this is a complex process of actually aligning curriculum across 115 colleges, 73 districts, thousands of courses, we cannot have that done, completed by next year. What we plan to do is to begin the process of implementation next year, do that in an iterative fashion. And the request for the extension to fall of 2027 is saying that by 2027, we feel more confident that we'd be able to have done this for the general education courses and the transfer requirements. But you will hear this task force is even thinking beyond that. We want to do more than what the law simply requires, and finish the Common Course numbering process even beyond the general education and transfer requirements. Next slide. We want to thank the committee. You see a picture of those lovely individuals who have been coming together for all-day meetings to have conversations about course elements, to have conversations about the technology needs to support this effort. So we're very thankful to them, very thankful to Jenny May, past president of the Academic Senate and from Sac City College, who continues to be the Academic Senate appointee and co-chair for this group, as well as Tram Vukamoto, past president of our CIO Association, who continues to be the other co-chair for this effort. Next slide. I will tag Jenny May in to share on the implementation, some of the key elements coming out of this conversation, and then we'll talk about next steps. Jenny.
Hi, I was about to say good morning. And it's
Red means it's off, I guess. Okay, green for go. Okay, good thing I'm driving home. So we have been busy. We have been working all summer. We started working early in the fall to get this work done. And what we are in the process of developing, we have a draft version right now of a recommended implementation plan. And it's coming forward as a recommendation so that it can be an iterative plan. It can be nimble to meet the needs of our system. We have purposely brought in our segment partners from UC, from CSU, and from the Association of Independent California Colleges and Universities. This won't work if we don't have them working with us. For students to be successful when they transfer with Common Course numbering, those other systems have to be in this work with us in making sure that our curriculum not only works within the community college system, but works upon transfer. That's the goal here. So we have started putting together Common Course numbering curriculum elements, what elements need to be identical, what need to be similar, and how would we move forward with that? This is not about simply writing a bunch of curriculum and dictating out to all the colleges what curriculum they must have. This is about bringing disciplined faculty together to explore curriculum that is in the best needs of students, and then creating these descriptors and aligning our curriculum appropriately. We're also looking at technology and infrastructure needed for this. Right now, we have a COKI system. We're going to need some type of system and some type of process to implement this Common Course numbering. We're talking, what, 40,000 courses minimum? So that's a pretty big technology request. And how is that going to happen at the 116 colleges, 73 districts, the chancellor's office in moving forward? And then finally, we're going to have a communication plan moving forward. How do we let students know what's happening? How do colleges know what's happening? How do you know what's happening? So the communication plan is essential. We're hoping to get this governance structure moving forward and approved early on so that we can begin that this fall. We want to hit the ground running in January 24. We don't want to wait till January 24 to form the governance structure, because that means it's another 3 or 4 months till we get going. So we want to approve it now and begin appointments to that governance structure, to this the possibility of a Common Course numbering council, so that we can get moving right in January of 2024. It was refreshing and, a little bit of weight lifted off my shoulders in a sense, even though am I actually responsible? I don't know, but I feel married to this in a sense that you supported asking for an extension to that deadline. We will have a plan in place and be moving come July 2024. But it won't be fully implemented by that time. It's going to be scaffolded. So what we're looking at is looking at each of the general education areas, CalGETC, and picking a few courses in each of those areas to begin moving forward, the most popular courses. So I think I'll move on here. Do you have anything to add?
Yes, so just highlighting here this data piece is so important and connected to the Vision 2030 work that you just supported, Board of Governors. When we think about our data infrastructure, what it's going to take for us to have Common Course numbering across this massive system. So even the work that we're doing now with the Common Cloud project, with the eventual ERP, all of that is helping to lay the groundwork for this important work, because we're going to need that synergy of technology to be able to speak to one another so that we can move this forward in an integrated fashion. And we've even had dreams in this task force of some sort of shared system with our four-year partners that could help to ease the course articulation process is a part of that dream as well in terms of data and infrastructure. So this is definitely an area where you'll see us continue to talk in those core areas of action that align with Vision 2030. What do we need in terms of policy, systems development, engagement with the field, as well as resource development? So next slide. Let's close this out and then we'll get to 9:28. So again, thank you for supporting the proposal for the extension of the deadline. Anytime you are proverbially across the street or interacting with state leaders, we want to make sure that you have the information and talking points to explain to them why that is helpful and necessary. As Jenny shared, the process will begin early 2024, but we will need more time to get through all of the courses in a system as large as ours. And we'll be sure to keep you updated in your Friday updates as this current task force, which is a Public Badly King committee, finishes their work of designing a plan of action. It is going to be detailed with milestones and timelines. We'll then have a long-term implementation structure in the form of this council to actually do the work of implementing. All right, next slide. Let's talk AB 928. So again, here, two efforts, both related to the important goal of credit mobility. As you all know, AB 928 has numerous components. One of them led to the development of CalGETC, but we're really focused on this statewide intersegmental committee that was developed under AB 928. And wanted to bring this before you, Board of Governors, because this committee has a fast approaching deadline that we must have recommendations to state leadership for these three goals that you see here listed under the charge. And these are going to go to the state, and the state has indicated in AB 928 that they intend to take these recommendations and somehow act upon them. So it's important that you're aware of this work, and we certainly want to hear your thoughts and your feedback on the direction the committee is going so that we can represent that and take it back to the committee. So you see here three very specific charges for this year. This group was charged with identifying annual goals for increasing transfer rates. So this very much aligned to our Vision 2030 work, and closing racial equity gaps. Very specific to STEM, which aligns to our workforce sectors, we are charged with proposing a new unit threshold for STEM degree pathways that will allow for entrance into both CSU and UC. And then there's this important goal around re-engaging ADT earners. We know when we look at the data that there's a percentage of students who earn an ADT, an associate's degree for transfer, and yet they do not transfer. And so we've been working on better understanding why that is and how do we re-engage those individuals. Next slide. So we wanted to give you some highlights. If you would like more in your digest, there are hyperlinks to a 67-page document that you can read in your spare time or on the weekend. If you want to get more into the weeds of the discussions of this group, Jenny and I are going to hit some highlights for you. And then again, we welcome your questions and feedback. So for that goal area, some of the things that you will likely see coming out of this group as potential recommendations, we will continue to vet them at our next meeting, is a call to close equity gaps by 2030. Right? That is bold, that is audacious, certainly aligned to our Vision 2030 work and our call out to continue to work on equity gaps, increasing the degree production in the state. Of course, we have that important state goal of 70% degree and credential attainment. We know that the California community colleges are essential to the meeting of that state goal. So you'll see 928 committee doubling down on that. Very excited to see this committee, and it did not have to come out of my or Jenny's mouths, it came out of others, see this committee supporting the community college baccalaureate degrees and identifying that as an important strategy for meeting these goals. So that also aligns with our Vision 2030 work, as well as this focus on closing regional opportunity gaps. And one important marker that this committee is laying down is this idea that successful transfer means that a student can transfer in their region and in their major. That's important because that is not the norm for us right now in the transfer landscape. Our ADT degree comes with a guarantee to admissions to a CSU, but there is often redirection. As we got a chance to look into data as a part of the work of this committee, we saw that only 10% of students who are redirected actually then enroll. So we have hard evidence that redirection is not working. So we're putting a marker down and saying that successful transfer means in the region and in the ADT major. So some exciting connections there to the work that we're doing in Vision 2030. We'll turn next to STEM, and I'll have Jenny chime in here on some of the things we're considering around the STEM goal.
So it's important to remember
what one of the goals or one of the charges was for this group. And it was proposing a new unit threshold for STEM degree pathways that meet requirements to both CSU and UC. Currently, we have ADT pathways that meet requirements to CSU, but they do not meet requirements to go to UC. So that is what we need to work on. And in order to do so, we need to pull groups together. So that is one of the first recommendations here, is to build a resource, statewide intersegmental infrastructure for shared pathways development. And this is something you just approved in your budget request, is that having that work begin. And this is what the Academic Senate has started with our transfer alignment project that Cheryl mentioned earlier. We're also discussing about allowing general education flexibility for STEM pathways. There are a couple of examples of UC transfer pathways where students are allowed to complete a couple of their general education courses after transfer. At this time, they cannot earn an ADT doing that, but we believe with a possible up to an additional 6 units and the flexibility there, depending on the STEM pathway, that students could do that. They could prepare and get an ADT that meets requirements of CSU and UC, graduate, and then transfer to the institution that they choose. And then finally, really, we want to scale culturally responsive student supports and academic and pedagogical improvements in all the work that we're doing. So these recommendations are going to be more fully refined in the next iteration of this document.
Thank you, Jenny. So important connections there again to our Vision 2030 work. This focus on culturally responsive classrooms and pedagogy, definitely connected to our continued work around DEIA, as we saw in action number 1 in Vision 2030. And really us getting this right for STEM is going to be important for our focus on that workforce sector, right? We have to be able to proliferate STEM pathways that work for both CSU and UC, as well as our AICCU independent partners. And so you'll see this body calling for that, asking for the state to establish an infrastructure and the funds for that intersegmental faculty work to take place. All right, next slide, second to last. Under the area of re-engaging ADT earners, a number of things very much connected to a lot of our systems development work that we're talking about in Vision 2030, things like, again, the Common Cloud Project and ERP, calling for that statewide universal student identification number and tracking system, right? So that we can track students as they move across our systems, and we could then better understand how credits are and are not moving with them. We know Cradle to Career is underway. So in some ways in this report, we'll be saying to the state, please move faster if possible so that we can get that. We were really hampered by the lack of data at this committee. We are trying to put forward, bold and audacious recommendations for these goals, but there are a lot of places where we would have liked to have set a baseline and actually been able to set numeric goals. We were really hindered by not having the data. So even the work you see us doing in Vision 2030 and our request for funds for that data, it cannot be understated how important those systems are to us having the information that we need so we can effectively move forward these priorities. You will see this group calling for the streamlining, minimizing, and where possible, eliminating student administrative processes. How do we in the California Community College system begin to automate conferral of community college degrees, right? We talked about having this more hands-on process, looking carefully at where a student is, identifying a student who, let's say, is 1 class away from an ADT. How do we proactively reach out to that student and tell them, hey, you're 1 class away from an ADT. Let's get you registered. Let's get you in that class so we can move you forward. The dream, again, of having a common transfer application across segments. How do we auto-populate? As Dr. Christian likes to say, let the data flow, right? How do we auto-populate those systems so the data can flow, and even auto-populate transfer applications or some of the things we'll be recommending? Establishing a statewide process for proactive outreach to students who are near the gate, right? Who are right near transfer and helping them to transition through that process. And then also establishing a statewide re-engagement campaign so that we can actively outreach to those students who have earned an ADT and help them to re-enroll, persist, and complete. So it's another way of us thinking about this concept we have in Vision 2030 of bringing college to the students. We have students who've actually completed an associate's degree. How do we help bring them then to the door of that four-year institution so that they can complete the process? So last slide, this group is working to finalize these recommendations. Again, on the website, there's a whole 67-page document with data and information that the group considered. There has been a public comment review period. Another one is just opening. At the last meeting, we actually started to crystallize some of these recommendations you're getting a preview of. So those will be codified in a document that will also go on that webpage and be open for public comments. And then we'll have our next meeting in November. And ultimately, we need to get a draft of this legislative report to the Office of Planning and Research, and then have a finalized report to the state by the end of this year. So Board of Governors, we will welcome your questions and comments.
Thank you so much. I have to just say we were laughing because the data is flowing. It's a river, it's a cloud, it's a lake. Anyway, go ahead, Board Member Grande.
Thank you for the presentation. And I just want to say, if this was an episode of Shark Tank, I would be buying in. What does it take? Because the idea of being able to tell students how close they are to completion, when so many of our students go to multiple community colleges and at no point in time see a counselor that tells them how close they are, but that federated ID number that would follow them, that would show on a dashboard, your pizza's almost ready for you, kind of thing. Please make it happen.
Absolutely. We just need a few $1 million.
Just a few? Okay. Done.
Budget desk. Board Member Brown, then Board Member Epstein.
So this is a really ambitious, but also very attainable, very thought out plan. But I wanted to just give a little context of where we are right now with this. AB 1111, it says the aim would be to align all community college courses so that students transferring to four-year institutions know as they are pursuing their courses that they are meeting the requirements of receiving institutions. I'm just going to focus in on that word, the requirements, and tell you how complicated that is. To make a course CSU transferable, it's instant. It's actually determined by the community college as soon as that it goes through the local processes, which depending on the college could take, I don't know, maybe a year. As soon as it gets input into the system by the articulation officer, that is a CSU transferable course. For UC, it's a once a year ask. You miss that time window, you wait a year. Okay, and that's just baseline. This is the transferable course. Then we've got the general education process. So if you've gotten through those other two processes, once a year, again, different time of year, of course, it's not going to be aligned, that we can ask for a course to be on the general education pattern for the CSUGE, for the UC. And if you miss one little thing and don't ask for all of the areas you wanted to ask for, you wait a year. Okay. And then there's and that's all a process through the back end of assist production. But then when it comes to transfer pathways and courses that students are using to count towards their major, it's completely individualized. It's this articulation officer from the community college emailing that articulation officer from the CSU or the UC, and then they're trying to chase down faculty from that department. And who knows when we'll hear back or if we will hear back. Okay, so it's not as simple as it sounds. So one course from concept of the course to full articulation, 2.5 years. Okay. This is an equity issue. So I can tell you within my district, we all moved to one transcript in 2016. And we have courses that have the same course name, that have the same course title, but they do not count the same. Not only might it be the same course name, same course title, it could be the same instructor, one of our freeway flyer adjuncts teaching the same course at two different places, and the students are not receiving credit the same. That is an equity issue, and a lot of that is actually from our partners because of their review processes. As you heard, a lot of pushback from the entire Area F implementation. I'll give you an example. If in 1974, a child development course was approved as an art, but along the way, the standards changed of what's considered an art, the CSU does not go back and say, okay, never mind this course. They just leave it there. And they expect the community college to remove an approval they have, I guess. And then another college says, well, now we have the same course and we're in the same district and same course title, same course name, same instructor teaching the same thing. We want that credit. And they say no. So we're trying to align, but there's these kinds of structural barriers in place and this sort of grandfathering of old courses that's been going on. And it's really problematic and it's absolutely an equity issue. I should not be getting credit based on what college I attend. But that's the case right now. So it's a huge issue and I'm very, very glad that you all are working on it. And I appreciate your efforts. And I'm glad that you're bringing in the intersegmental partners at the very beginning. I know the UC reached out maybe a year ago asking about how often do our curriculum committees meet in the California Community College system and if we need to streamline these processes, and we absolutely need to, because the way this legislation is written, it's sort of assuming that the CSU and the UC are using CID in a way that they're not. So across our system, aligning, easy. Aligning with our CSU and UC, that's where all the challenges are going to come in. And then those questions of academic freedom, when we talk about the major, right? That's different than general ed. So this is really, really big, but I do think it's really possible. So thank you so much.
Thanks. Next, we have Board Member Epstein, followed by Board Member Haynes.
This isn't what I was going to say before, but what you just said made my head explode. I just, I constantly discover things about this system that drive me crazy, but that's certainly one of them. And it's completely antithetical to AB 928, everything you just said. And I hope that somewhere out there in the world that you're existing in, that people are recognizing that and are trying to take that on, because it's just crazy. No, but I was going to say is just that after sitting through this meeting and seeing Executive Vice Chancellor Lowe up here kind of repeatedly, I think she doesn't have enough to do. I think she needs, I think she needs to coordinate 3 or 4 more task forces and write a 50-page treatise on how much she enjoys her job at the California community colleges. That's all.
Like point of privilege, I would like the chancellor to strike that down as the.
That is officially stricken for the record. Board Member Haynes.
So I too want to commend all the work being done here because it's so critically important. At the beginning, I think, of the conversation, there was a mention, if not by you, by someone on the team that basically said, we're going to, and maybe it was Lizette, we're going to put out a questionnaire that talks about the ADT and ask our students and others sort of how they're using it and what their challenges are. Just from my own personal contact with students over the last 7 years, many of them have even volunteered that they have an ADT. They volunteered that they have 3, 4, 5, 6 ADTs. Now, they may all be related, but I think we need to really get to why that's the case, because it's not just because they love that community college. I believe that they're chasing the transfer and I suspect that many of the reasons why they're chasing it is because certain things have changed for them, or they're trying to cover their bases because of the inefficiencies that we see in the systems. And so I'm hoping that it will be that we are able to really have the data about what our students are saying about why they're not transferring. I think even if it's just for that area, but there are also students that are place bound and they're not transferring. And we need to recognize that what can we do to help? And so I'm appreciative that we're going to look at the language with the CSUs so that it nails down that's because that again is an equity issue, and it is it's a dream deferred or canceled out.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. And just thank you for all of your comments. Member Brown laid it out very clearly, the complexity of this process. And we really are leveraging these opportunities to try to get to exactly what you are raising, Board of Governors. In particular with Common Course numbering, while our four-year partners were not mandated to be a part of that, we have invited them to, and they have. They are showing up, they're engaging in that conversation. We're dreaming together about a future where we have a unified system and process. The discipline faculty can get together and say, okay, these elements identify that this course gets this number and that it articulates. That's really the key so that we can get out of this place that we've been in for so long, which can be very time consuming and is not fair to our students or to our colleges. So we will keep you updated on how this work is progressing. And then, of course, after we get past recommendations, we'll get to the work of implementation and keep you updated on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. With that, I'd like to call on any public comment on this item.
The public comment period on item 6.1 is now open. I will hand it over to Vice President Aguinaldo to begin with public remarks in Sacramento.
Thank you very much. We just have one public comment from Wendy Brillwine-Coop.
Whatever it is. Hello, Wendy Brillwine-Coop, Faculty Association, California Community Colleges. I already spoke to the Common Course numbering in the legislative and budget request, but of course we support that. But many, regarding AB 928, many of our students need to stay in their home region for colleges due to factors like jobs, family responsibilities, and finances. Excuse me. The lack of regional capacity is a major obstacle for students hoping to transfer, especially low income and students of color. And when students are redirected by a CSU to a campus outside of their region due to impaction, only around 10% ultimately enroll in the redirection campus. So regional opportunity gaps create an insurmountable barrier for students. To address these issues, we need to focus on setting goals for partnerships with the California's other systems of higher education, in addition to strategies like expanding online offerings, establishing satellite campuses, and addressing impact policies to improve regional transfer access. We need to work collaboratively with these other institutions to create more complete regional pathways for our students. To help reduce opportunity gaps and ensure that all students have access to education they need and succeed. So we would love to partner to make sure that we can improve the opportunities at the regional area. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any online comments on this issue?
Yes, we have a couple of hands. Josh Franco, you have control of your mic and can address the board.
Great. So good afternoon. Thank you again. My wife has relieved me of baby duty, so I'm sticking with you guys till the end. I appreciate the opportunity. I believe it's essential to support faculty at the discipline level to close equity gaps, increase coordination, bolster efforts to increase degree attainment, and close opportunity gaps. Academic disciplines are the heart of knowledge exploration, consumption, application, and creation. We need to maintain a broad conceptualization of community colleges as places where students, faculty, staff, and administrators convene to co-create a diverse, inclusive, and equitable learning experience that introduces and welcomes students to academic fields and disciplines. Academic disciplines and the faculty that occupy these respective fields only after years of advanced study and research need to be centered in achieving the goals described in the draft AB 928 implementation document. To this end, I recommend the following. First, disaggregated data be further cross-tabulated by discipline, i.e. using top codes, and provided to the respective faculty discipline review groups for review and discussion. Second, the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges should be provided with the financial resources necessary so they can further support faculty discipline review groups who want to host discipline-specific peer-to-peer pedagogical partnerships that convene faculty from the community colleges, Cal States, UCs, independent colleges, universities, and HBCUs to discuss this disaggregated data, share best practices, and develop resources to help faculty colleagues close their equity gaps. And then finally, the California Community College Board of Governors could invite representatives from these discipline review groups to share their efforts in working with their colleagues in other systems. With that, I thank you for your time and attention.
Mirzan Makhmudov, you have control of your mic and can address the board.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Nurjan Mahmoudov, and I'm a startup founder here in Bay Area. And what we are doing, we're powering AI platform for community college students that will help them to transfer to four-year university. It will help them create them transfer plan, keep track, it will manage and track their preparation progress. My question is, how we can, would you allow a third party, like the startups, to join this journey and to bring the value and transfer more students? That's my question.
I don't know that we can directly address that. I'm looking at our general counsel. Yeah, feel free to call the chancellor's office. I'll have our board liaison drop the contact information in the chat for you to follow up with them. Thank you so much.
There are no other hands raised at this time.
Great, thank you. The hour is now 5:11. The business of the board for today is done, so the board will stand in recess until we reconvene tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thank you.